welcome to episode 98 of the Intentionally Well podcast. I am your host, Vanessa Lopez. Well, it's so nice to have you guys join me today. I'm always so grateful, and I am also very excited to share today's episode with you. I am joined by my friend and returning guest, Matt Blackburn, founder of MitoLife. And we've been wanting to do a follow-up show for a while now, but it just felt like, okay, now's the perfect time, especially because MitoLife is really the brand that I get asked about the most on social media and in DMs. So today we decided that we were going to dig a bit deeper into Matt's work, and he would share some, insights with you and also answer a large handful of questions that some of you have sent in. So giving you just a quick little background, Matt founded MitoLife with one simple mission: to help people feel more energized and less stressed and just healthier overall. And for it to be actually a tangible thing, right? Because we don't like complicated. He approaches health as a lifelong learner. He's always testing and observing and adapting and evolving, which I think is a good thing. In Matt's opinion, in his view, supplementation is not just some kind of shortcut. It is foundational. Even if you eat clean and move your body and get sunlight, all those things, the modern world it's throwing so many challenges at us today that he believes that the right targeted nutrients are absolutely essential for truly supporting our health today. So, on this episode, we do dig more into his CLF Protocol. That stands for calcification, Lipofuscin, and fibrosis, and how these processes can affect burnout and recovery and really just foundational health. We also touch on the new craze and his recent experience and ongoing experience with peptides. And like I said, he very generously answers as many questions as we could get to. And they largely connect to the MitoLife brand, which is great. We explore insights from Matt's research and personal experiences. So whether you are curious about cellular aging or recovery from burnout or even chronic issues, or you just want practical strategies just to improve your well-being, this episode has something for you. Now, full disclosure, my friends, I cannot introduce this episode without sharing that this recording was quite the adventure. We were in our seats for over 4 hours. I'm going to say close to 4.5 hours. We had tech issues hit us. We had lighting quirks. I think I lost my mic at least twice. I don't know. We even had pet cameos. I think my little dog Tilly spent at least 45 minutes on my lap supervising. Pearl, my other dog, made some kind of, she was barking at some point. She definitely made a cameo. Matt's cat Lava joined us for about an hour. Let me just say, thank God for editors, but I will tell you, I did not cut every little thing out. So if you hear us crack up from time to time, that's just part of the energy behind this episode. It was chaotic, it was fun, and it was just a very memorable one, that's for sure, but also very insightful and very, very informative. So with that said, get ready. Lots of information on this one. Make sure you stick around as well for my closing thoughts. And don't miss the end, where Matt, for the first time, he shares the name of his new product that's going to be coming out in the near future. One that I foresee definitely adding to my regimen, no doubt. So again, I hope you enjoy. Once again, here is episode 98 of Intentionally Well with Matt Blackburn. Hi, Matt. Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have you here with us. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me back. I'm excited.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this for, I don't know, how long now? For a long time.
A year? I can't remember the last time I was on your show.
I want to say, well, let's see. We re-released it, right? A few weeks ago, or maybe less than a month ago. And I think that was back from 2024. I want to say the summer of 2024. Yeah, so it's been a while, but it's such a pleasure to have you back.
Yeah, I think on social media, we see a lot of the same questions roll through from people, and usually very specific health conditions and asking for advice. And so hoping with the show, we can help people find some clarity with that and just get some guidance of what to look into, which direction to go, because, every influencer on social media is saying something different.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think that, I mean, I think you and I, we align a lot. Well, first of all, we talk a lot behind the scenes. Obviously, we're friends. And so we kind of go back and forth with a lot of things that we see and hear. And, it's interesting because, like you said, and I think you recently even posted about it, like everybody's got an opinion about everything and everybody feels like they're an expert in something, and there's also sometimes, and unfortunately, not the best motives with people. And I think that from a consumer side, or a side where people are just following along and trying to do the best they can to support their health or to support their family's health, there's so much overwhelm and people are so confused. And so I think today our goal, which I am excited about, I think we've got a great plan, is just, it's really just about dialing things back and restoring things back to just restoring foundations versus like chasing hacks and like fancy things, because those can be awesome and fun. But I feel as though people are just completely overwhelmed and there's so much information. And so I think just setting some foundational groundwork, which is what we're going to largely go into with your CLF protocol, I think it's going to be really helpful for people. So I'm excited and ready.
Yeah. Yeah. I started on this whole health journey in 2010 when I found green vegetable juicing and raw veganism. And I got into supplementation really early, almost immediately, because I knew that a raw vegan diet was deficient in nutrients just at a gut level. And I started with Ayurveda and herbs, Bacopa and Bakuna, found Shilajit very early, made these, crazy smoothies and raw chocolate at home. And I was doing so many different detox protocols at the same time. And it really wasn't until I started eating grass-fed beef and oysters and raw goat milk. This was roughly around 2012, 2013, that I started to take magnesium and Shilajit consistently. And just those two supplements, plus all the nutrients and animal foods and animal products, really switched my brain on, because I was not a smart kid growing up. Our parents did the best they could, but if you're on standard American, you and I, we're not raised on a farm with chickens and goats and cows and, uh, raised on all those high quality foods. We were raised on supermarket foods. And so our brain could only develop to a certain level. Unfortunately, even the people raised on farms, they're not supplementing and they're still exposed to the same things, the organophosphate, the glyphosate, the heavy metals, obviously, the stuff spraying in the skies. And that taxes our vitamin and mineral status. So even the farm people were underdeveloped uh, neurologically. And from what I've researched, unfortunately, that's irreversible. But I feel like I've done a decent job personally of at least getting closer to baseline after being underdeveloped. And my mom was pescatarian when she had me, so zero red meat. Uh, when I was in the womb, and iron deficiency, it clearly affects the fetus pretty much permanently with an not fully developed hippocampus and different parts of the brain. The amygdala is altered. All that to say, that led me to research all these different supplements and what really matters. What's the foundation? Is it CoQ10? Is it PQQ? Is it turmeric? Is it fish oil? All these like mainstream supplements, or is it the stuff that I found, which are these specific fat soluble vitamins like vitamin K2, vitamin E, uh, and then you get into the minerals, the magnesium, the zinc in specific forms, uh, copper, systemic enzymes, all the stuff that I sell now with my brand MitoLife. To me, those are the foundational things to take. And when I look at the world of supplements, I just see all of the little pouch products, the liposomal, the micelle encapsulated, the nano, all these complex, really boutique brands where it's either the liquid pumps, it's the pouches that you suck on. It's just very strange. And all the forms of the nutrients are usually wrong. So instead of ascorbic acid. It's buffered vitamin C or sodium ascorbate. Uh, it, it's just all wrong to me. And getting back to just simpler makes sense. I mean, I could go on a whole rant about vitamin B3 and how confused people are about NAD and that whole world. But you find niacinamide in food. You don't find nicotinamide riboside. You don't find NMN. You don't find NR, all these different really expensive precursors to NAD. You find niacinamide, and that's the one that I sell. It's relatively safe to take huge amounts of.
I I I appreciate well there you said something just a few seconds ago which made me think of like kind of a rebuttal that I know that you deal with a lot. And it just this entire little start to the conversation, it really just reminded me of it, which is, you know, you're talking about like how we, like you and I, as an example, like we grew up in a time where maybe our foundations weren't set appropriately due to, you know, our parents did the best they, you know, with the information that they had at the time, right? Like we're not blaming anybody, but we did grow up probably deficient in several ways. And there's this whole camp, which you've taken some heat, but you've screamed about, you know, more or less back, which kind of like states that, you know, as long as we incorporate like the right foods and, you know, we do like these really foundational things, right? Like eat and sleep and blah, 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 then we should be on track. And that's not your stance, because your stance is really like, we don't have the capability to do that now because of the way that the world has gone and the direction that we have gone as a society, that we need supplementation, and supplementation really is foundational, because there's this whole argument, well, it's not foundational and you're not going to get the benefits and yada, yada, yada. And there's like a lot of people that scream about this. So can you touch on that? And then that I think is going to be a good, we'll segue into, you know, just kind of bridge, like people are so stressed out, so burnt out, and sort of like start to talk about CLF, because I think that's just the way to go today. I feel like it's really going to help, I think, people ground themselves, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said the words. So stress, people think that magnesium, potassium, those are the big ones to go. I mean, most people know about magnesium. Less people know that potassium is also burned under stress. Less people know that zinc is burned under stress. And it just goes on and on. I mean, you pretty much lose a lot of nutrients when you're under psychological, I mean, really any stressor. And I can speak from my experience the last really 2 to 3 years. It's been unrelenting, nonstop, chronic stress, which a lot of people can relate to. You know, whatever it is, whether it's relationship, pets, people in the family that are sick.
Pets, I'm sorry. If anyone follows me on social media, he said pets on purpose. Okay.
A shout out to you. Yeah. So burn rate of nutrients from stress, but also the toxic exposure. So the heavy metals are a big one, and they're everywhere in cosmetic products, in environmental toxins, the exhaust from vehicles. You know, we took lead out of gasoline, but there's still all of these other things that we get with tires being burned up and, you know, aerosolized into the environment. And who knows what they're spraying on us in the sky, even up here. And metals compete for binding sites with minerals. That's the bottom line. And a lot of the HTMA people beat that drum nonstop. And it's true. So cadmium, mercury, arsenic compete with zinc, and same with magnesium. The flip side to that, if you supplement these things, specifically magnesium and zinc are the big two, but copper also matters, and all of the other nutrients matter, even the obscure ones like manganese matter. But those will help to prevent toxicity from these heavy metals. So you have the stress, you have the constant, unrelenting, no matter where you live on Earth, heavy metal exposure that you have to supplement to keep up with. So those two things contribute to the burn rate. And then also that your upbringing. So the reason why I got into a lot of these supplements, like namely vitamin K2, when I was pretty much a fruitarian, I was eating 20 plus bananas a day. I was sitting on the couch with a Myron glass bottle because I only drank out of glass. This is my extremist phase. And I gently brought the bottle up to my teeth and just chipped my front tooth so easily. And that was a wake up call. It took several months to kind of kick in and realize what happened. But my teeth were brittle, and I started to research why. And it turns out vitamin K2 is required to regulate the pH of your saliva, and the saliva is what buffers the acids. And I was getting a ton of stuff stuck to my teeth. I mean, especially with bananas, are one of the worst foods. I wasn't chewing xylitol gum or brushing with fluoride toothpaste, which would have helped me. And so it was just destroy, and obviously no calcium coming in because I was vegan. Very little phosphorus coming in because I wasn't eating red meat. And taking K2 just for several months, I felt my teeth get stronger. And that's something that I've heard from so many people, even just one a day, like a very, very low dose of MK4 and MK7 form. And so that started to open my world of, okay, what else have I been missing? Well, vitamin E, that burn rate is increased with vegetable oil consumption. The seed oil thing blew up like I never thought it would. And the last, 4 or 5 years. Yeah. But not a lot of people were talking about vitamin E, and even less people are talking about that part of my protocol called Lipofuscin, which we can get into later. But the seed oils is like the tip of the iceberg, and then the Lipofuscin is like
underneath
bottom. Yeah, it's what that leads to, especially for people that are supplementing fish oil and aren't prioritizing vitamin E. There's the seesaw relationship with polyunsaturated fatty acids, whether it be N3s or N6s, the omega-3s or the omega-6s. There's that seesaw where you will deplete vitamin E, and you could look up PubMed studies on this, where there is a specific ratio of D-alpha tocopherol to the polyunsaturated fats in your tissue. And this takes several years to reverse once you've gone down the other road. So yeah, these were like huge revelations that I had over the years of these crucial nutrients. And that really inspired me to start MitoLife because nobody was talking about it. And it's way more foundational than all of the stuff that's trending now. Like I mentioned, the liposomal stuff, the peptides, NAD therapies, the IV therapies. That's all secondary
yeah
stuff.
Well, and I think some people know this, but we do have a very large handful of questions that came in for this episode. So we are going to, the plan is we're going to tackle those questions. And I think what's going to happen is that some of the questions are going to be answered through our discussion. So friends, if you sent in a question and we are not specifically talking about, or we don't get to the actual question towards the end of this episode, because we are going to do kind of a rapid fire, or hopefully we're going to try and do a rapid fire because we've got so many, but it's probably because the question is already answered within the discussion and Matt's already kind of touched on it, because we are going to go through, just some of the foundational supplements in his protocol, which is called the CLF Protocol. And we're going to dissect it a little bit, or I should say he's going to dissect it for us a little bit. And really probably it's going to be good for me, because as we were joking about off air, as I was prepping for this show, as much as I've known about and have adhered towards this protocol too, I even need a little bit of a refresher course on it, because it's always great also to just have like some really just decent background knowledge on what you're taking. Not that I don't have that, but it's just really nice to come back around and talk about these nutrients and how beneficial they are for the body and why you're taking them, because that's important. We're just not like, here, take this, let's pop the pill and just go for it. Right. I mean, people do want, as people just want the quick answer, right? Just tell me what to take. But I always feel like it's important to know at least a little bit about what you're doing, because I think that it translates and it can help. And then also just, I don't know, give you some wisdom about how your body responds. So if you've got anything to add on to that before we jump in, go for it.
I'm really glad you said that, because back in the day, I would go to people's kitchen and look in their supplement cabinet and talk to them. And a common question I had for them is, why do you take this? And 90% of the time it was, I don't know. I just heard it was good for me. That is the worst answer because that means that they were a victim of marketing
Mm-hmm.
and they have no idea the form, dosage, the purpose. They don't need to be a biochemist and, know every enzymatic pathway of how a supplement works, but just the very, at least a one sentence reply of why you're taking something would suffice instead of, I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I understand, like you said, you said it perfectly. You don't have to be a biochemist. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to get a PhD in supplementation or in chemistry or physiology or whatever. But we live in a time period now where we really need to be the advocators, promoters. We need to be in the driver's seat with our health. We are not outsourcing anymore, because we've learned, right, that when we outsource our health to a large degree, it's going to backfire. We need to be, quote unquote, in charge. Obviously there are things beyond our control. I get that. But when it comes to, just routines and things that, we are trying to heal or we're trying to mitigate or whatever, we need to have some sort of intelligence behind what we're doing and how we are feeding ourselves, because that's essentially what's going on. We are feeding ourselves. It might not be a piece of broccoli or a steak, but it is something that is going into our body and making a difference one way or another. And so it's important for us to at least have somewhat of an idea of what we're doing. So with that, why don't we jump in? I would love for you to just give a snapshot, one or two sentence. What is CLF? What does it stand for? And then we can start with calcification. Oops, I just gave it away. But we can start with the C and we can move into it. We're kind of going to do it in, 3 little sections, and then we're going to branch out from there. So go for it, my friend.
Awesome. So I first, well, okay. So I wrote the CLF protocol in 2019, after I basically restarted my life. And this was a culmination of essentially 9 years of research, just relentless research. I mean, daily research and self-experimentation of, as I mentioned earlier, proper dosing, forms, and then which supplements we should prioritize. And what are the 3 main problems that contribute to all the common questions that I get from people, whether it's high blood pressure, dental issues, as I mentioned earlier, just less resilience to stress, all the common issues that we hear about. And it's calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis. And the lipofuscin, people will say I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but it's kind of like Porsche, whether you say Porsche or Porsche, people know what you're talking about. So you're still getting the point across. But Lipofuscin, there's people say Lipofuscin. I say Lipofuscin just because that's how it's spelled and it's easy, and it's not a big deal to pronounce something different.
Tomato. It's like tomato.
Right.
I mean, we were having a conversation the other day, and I think I was saying Porsche and you were saying Porsche. We definitely knew what we were talking about, though. We were not confused.
Right.
Totally get it.
Yeah, and so so these lead to a lot of these 3 things branch out to so many different conditions, and to me, this really simplified things where I could help more people instead of micromanaging. Like, a lot of people message me every day on social media with very, very rare specific health conditions that I've never heard of. And I'll Google it and it's, oh, this is a calcification condition. Oh, this is a lipofuscin. Oh, this is a fibrosis condition. Every time. There's not any time where I Google it and look into what the condition is that I've never heard of and look at what causes it, that it's not one of those 3 things so far.
Yeah. So if I can, I'm just going to sort of reword or reaffirm what you just said, which is, and again, I say this without shame, and I say this without, judgment, because I too have been in this position. And sometimes it's, put it this way, it's easy to go down this road. But I think, okay, so my first point is everybody's looking for an answer. Everybody wants a diagnosis. Everybody wants to, they need something to grab onto so that they have an explanation for what's going on, because in some way, shape, or form, that provides some sort of a resolution, even if they're still looking for the answers or how to heal or whatnot. Okay, so take that. With that, no matter what the cause is, or excuse me, not the cause, but what the name is, or what, you read in the text in the Merck manual, what your doctor is telling you, there's very few, basically things always boil down to the same thing, which is mitochondrial stress. And those stressors can be coming in from numerous directions, right? Like stress could be seen and shown in your life in numerous ways, but it always is stress. There's some sort of a burden on the body, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, a combination of, usually, right? So I feel as though, like, to your point, it's just that's what you're kind of saying, is that, like, there's these foundational things, and we really are like searching because we have a unique thing that we've got to tackle. But is it as unique as our neighbors? Well, maybe the name is, but these foundational requirements and these things, or deficiencies, right? Things that we might be missing, or things that we need to look at in our lives, it all kind of wraps back to the same little pile of stuff, for lack of better terminology, right? Quote unquote stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure you agree.
For sure. Yeah. And there are a lot of people muddying the waters by, like you mentioned earlier, the foundational stuff, which is really important, like real food, sleep, sunlight, fresh air. Everybody's talking about that. You listen to Huberman's podcast, he's just going outside is good for you, kind of scientifically information. But with sleep, you can't improve your sleep if you're frying in 50 Wi-Fi signals, like I was the last time I went to San Diego in an Airbnb in La Jolla. With these deficiencies, even an acute deficiency, because EMFs lower your melatonin, regardless of whether you're wearing blue blocking glasses or not, it actually lowers your tissue levels of melatonin acutely. So that is a place where melatonin is not a band-aid or a hack. It is a absolutely critical protective substance to take, especially if you live in an apartment all the time, or a population dense city like San Diego or Los Angeles or Austin or whatever it is. These supplements become foundational for proper sleep. So that's just another point. I mean, there's so many layers to this, but yeah, that's just one other angle where people attack either supplementation as a whole as not being foundational, or specific supplements like melatonin that gets demonized a lot.
Yeah, that's a good example. And I agree with you. I think it's strange thinking, and I understand, like, some of these people out here, really against it. They've got some of what they say is valid. Like, I understand, right? Like, I understand where they're coming from. And I also understand that they have probably good intentions. Some of them, they have good intentions, right? Like, they're really trying to establish an overarching, quote unquote foundational mindset for people. This is what you need to focus on. Yeah, you're right. We do need to eat well. We do need to sleep well. We do need to get outside and not be in, an office all day sitting. And, we do need exercise, all the things. But we are not we're in a strange part of time, today. I mean, I don't have any fancy words for it. We are literally in a very altered, very sick portion of life. And it's unfortunate, that we have to be this in tune, and we have to mitigate to this degree. But a lot of the foundations they just can't be accomplished without some assistance now. And so, and it's not about just, like you alluded to it earlier, throwing everything but the kitchen sink into your at the wall. Like you can't throw everything and just be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to take 40 different supplements and this is going to be it. And no, it's about strategic supplementation. You have to figure out what's best for you. What state are you in? Where are you at in your life? There's a lot of things that come into play. But bottom line, I think today it's mind blowing if someone's walking through life without some sort of supplementation,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd imagine most people are taking some supplements, even if it's 2 or 3 or Costco supplements or Walmart or whatever it is.
Yeah, don't do that, friends.
But, like we said earlier, they don't know why they're taking them. They just heard it on Dr. Oz or on social media or whatever it is.
Dr. Oz. Oh my goodness. But seriously, yeah. I mean, and I think there's still, I would love to make this point before we jump into calcification, which is I think people like you or me or a lot of our listeners probably, we tend to forget that we think that everyone is paying attention to the same information that we are. But and often have to remind myself is that we often sit in a bubble, right? It's like if someone was really, really into cars, right? And so all they do is they surround themselves with people who love cars and they go to all the events and they go to all the things and they read all the, articles about cars and they are really invested. So in their minds, they kind of think like, well, everybody else sees what I do, right? Like everyone sees the same stuff. No, they're mainstream. Let's just stay with America right now. Mainstream America is not seeing a lot of the things that we are blessed enough to be aware of. And so I think that it's just natural for a lot of, society still to go to Walmart and pick out the vitamin D off the shelf or the whatever it is, the multi that's, Kirkland multivitamin or whatever, because in their mind, that's what is good. And that's what they've seen or heard on the news or whatever. And
yeah, I think a lot of it's financial too. I mean, I think the country's not doing so great financially right now.
Yeah.
I think the Fed's about to inject another, I forget, 16 trillion into the US economy or something. It's like we need more inflation. But I think a lot of people have this view that maybe MitoLife is luxury supplements or these healthy brands. And a lot of them are, like I mentioned, the word boutique, these Southern California brands where they have all these investors, and it's just, they're basically sellouts, and they're really good at ads and SEO and marketing. But that actually makes the problem worse because it's perpetuating this lie that supplementing properly is expensive. That's one of my primary goals for MitoLife. Yes, I have products that are, $50, and I'm coming out with a chill pill kind of product in a month or two that's going to be, in this 70 range, something like that. But the foundational stuff where we get to melatonin, zinc, magnesium, certain supplements, when I have a MitoLife sale, which is
often
pretty frequent, it can be cheaper than Sprouts or whatever health food store people are familiar with, Whole Foods or whatever they buy supplements. So
Vitamin Shop, those places. Yeah.
Even Amazon. I mean, Amazon's kind of the scary one because there's been so many times where people buy a product and it's not what they think they're getting one thing and they're getting something else.
Yeah.
So do not buy your supplements on Amazon. Always buy direct from the manufacturer. And we can get into, other stuff later, like the third-party testing and all the things, the recertifying that I do with MitoLife and all these things if a product's been on the shelf a while. But yeah, it's just I really do feel for people. I mean, I communicate with people all the time that, single mothers with 3 kids, paying the rent by herself, working by herself. And I really try to help these people and prioritize, even if they can only take 2 or 3 supplements with what they have going on, what are they? Like, I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah. I know you are. And it's commendable. And, I've talked to you both on social media and off, and, we've talked about integrity. And I just think it's unfortunate because we don't see it as much anymore. And I think that just because the market is so saturated and there's so much competition, and people also are out to make a buck most of the time. That's their primary focus, and that there's nothing wrong with making money alongside of your passion, because that's often how it works. It goes hand in hand. But when your sole goal is just to sell, and you don't have integrity behind the goal, that's where things really get a little, they get a little shady. So I've told you that for years, like that's one of the reasons why I appreciate you as a business owner. And also I've supported your brand and talk about it, because it's stand out in that way. So, just a little nod to you. But let's dive in. Let's dive in so we can just sort of tackle this in the best way that we know how, right? Because I think one of the things that you and I have struggled with is how are we going to dial all this information down, right, into just a timeline that works. But we're going to do our best. So in terms of CLF, let's go into the first aspect of the protocol, which is calcification. Give us a digestible breakdown of what calcification is and why we should know about it, and how supplements that specifically in your line can be helpful when it comes to calcification.
Awesome. So with calcification, there's normal calcification and abnormal or unnatural calcification. And I first learned about calcification back in 2010, right when I got into raw veganism. It kind of goes hand in hand with a detox life. And I was listening to famous raw vegans on stage talk about how it's a coral reef in your tissues and magnesium's the cure. And of course, calcified pineal gland from fluoridated water and fluoridated toothpaste came into the conversation. And the cure is magnesium from raw chocolate. That was like a couple guys' message that they were shilling like raw chocolate, cacao, because chocolate is a source of magnesium, but definitely not as concentrated as a supplement. And magnesium is one of the things that regulates calcium, but that's a very elementary way to look at it. So calcification, normal calcification is a process where teeth, bones become ionized calcium gets crystallized and forms your teeth and bones. And that's what's supposed to happen. But when abnormal calcification occurs, basically the calcium goes where it shouldn't. So this includes the soft tissues. So this includes your blood vessel diseases, high blood pressure. One of the most common causes of high blood pressure is calcification in the soft tissues, blood vessels, the arteries, congestive heart failure, which I've had in my family. That is largely caused by calcification, among other things, just overall deficiencies. But vitamin K2, magnesium, those are the main two that regulate calcium. There's also this really complex vitamin D piece, which lately I've been seeing podcasts coming up on vitamin D, kind of parroting the root cause protocol mentality that, it's cholecalciferol is used in rat poison, which I used to say, which is vitamin D3, which is the common supplement. And that is true. Not all rat poison though. And it's a dose that overwhelms their kidneys. So obviously there's a body weight consideration here. I'm like 155 pounds. How much does a rat weigh? A lot less than me. But too high or too low vitamin D can cause abnormal calcification. And this occurs because of a hormone called parathyroid hormone. So parathyroid hormone pulls calcium out of the bones, and we don't want high PTH, and you could get a blood test to see where you're at here. If someone has a deficiency of vitamin D, for a lot of people, this they have a genetic defect, or they can't synthesize vitamin D from sunlight. So they absolutely need to supplement, which flies in the face of all these anti-vitamin D people going on podcasts and screaming from the mountaintops, nobody should ever supplement vitamin D ever. Personally, I don't supplement it. Personally, I hover with my blood tests in the low 30s. There is that reference range that people talk about where it's, I think, 40 to 80, and depending on, whether it's Quest or whatever um, lab, there's the reference range is different.
Mm-hmm.
My philosophy on vitamin D is the same as serum ferritin, where it's individual, where the reference range for serum ferritin is so big, so wide, that who is to say that you have to be within this very specific window if you feel good? If someone's over a 300 ferritin and they feel like crap and they're fatigued all the time and they donate blood and they feel better, okay. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'll reel it back to calcification.
Yeah, no, go. This is good. This is good.
But if they're teens ferritin and they're feeling super fatigued and they supplement iron bisglycinate or heme iron or whatever ferritin plus or whatever iron supplement, and they feel better and their fatigue goes away, then obviously they were out of their personal reference range of what's healthy. Same goes for vitamin D. I know the repeat people are just absolutely religious and aggressively defensive about vitamin D and how safe it is. And I have noticed over the years they've reeled that back quite a bit to where they aren't as brazen about it, talking about, oh, it's safe to take 10,000 IUs or 20,000 IUs for days at a time and has all these benefits. For certain people, I'm sure it does. I've done a personal, as I do, I feel a responsibility as the owner of a supplement company to go to extremes with doses. So there was a time the last several years, I think it's been 4 years, probably 3-4 years, where I did take mega doses of vitamin D3 for a while and I felt worse. So and this was with the cofactors, which people think is just K2, but there's all these other things that play in the other fat soluble vitamins, obviously A, D, E, and K. There's a balance there with all the four fat soluble vitamins, and they protect from each other's toxicity. That's the thing. So all the Grant Genero anti-vitamin A, vitamin A is a toxin people, they have no clue that vitamin E protects against vitamin A toxicity, and they all work together to protect from if there's an imbalance.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to screw yourself up unless you're taking, you're eating polar bear liver or you're taking the Columbra protocol, COIMBRA, I have his book where, 100,000 IUs of D3 a day. Unless you're doing something extremely extreme like that, it's hard to mess yourself up with vitamins.
It's interesting that you say that because I feel like that is such a fear. That is such a common fear. And that's a fear that drops into my messages all the time. So I'm glad that you went in this direction because this is what I hear. I don't want to make myself worse. I am scared that if I take this, then I'm not going to know what else to take because things are synergistic. And so I might as well just not take anything at all. I don't know how this is going to affect that. And I'm just over here just learning as I go too. And I'm not the quote unquote expert, although I talk to them all the time. But I understand where this comes from. I absolutely do. And it's just a lack of education all around. We're not taught this stuff growing up. We have no idea. We're not taught the right kind of nutrition or I just don't think that we have the foundation set from a young age. And so it's natural. And I think with all the information out here as well, floating around, one person's saying this and the next person is saying this. And then you've got person, 10 over here saying that tooting this horn. And so it just becomes so overwhelming that people just stop and they don't do anything at all. And so I like how you said it's really, really hard to screw yourself up because I think people are super scared of toxicities even more than they are scared of deficiencies. Absolutely. And what you're saying is actually, no, you really have to go overboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People are afraid. I mean, certain supplements people, I would say, should be afraid of, but those are the Franken supplements marketed by these boutique brands where it's a smorgasbord, when you look at the total ingredients with the other ingredients included, 10 or 15 ingredients because, and those tend to be the pouches, and the spray product, the pump products. because the liquid formulations, they have to add these emulsifiers and preservatives, even if they're natural preservatives. And that just increases the risk of allergic reaction. So the reason why I like pills, although pills get demonized, is because they are cleaner. I don't need to shove all these preservatives and things. The preservative is the capsule that's protecting it from oxygen and oxidation. And then when it's a sealed bottle that's unopened, that's a second layer of protection from oxidation. So the product almost lasts forever, not forever, but many, many years, way more than a liquid product, way more than a powdered product in a bulk container. But yeah, absolutely. Great point that you made. And I do want to go back to
Yeah.
calcifications.
Yeah. Please.
Kidney diseases are calcification, even things like breast cancer, calcification, um, obviously coronary heart disease. People are having a lot of heart issues, whether it's, as I mentioned, congestive heart failure, palpitations is common. Uh, uh, it basically from the heart where the blood's going out. I like to think of it like there's highways, just like if you zoom out on Google Maps, there's highways, there's side streets, and then like me, there's like super side streets, like a dirt roads. And they basically get smaller. So blood vessels or arteries, blood vessels, capillaries, and it's like these tree branches going out throughout our body, and those super small tubes can get clogged very easily when we're talking about the scale. They're tiny, like the capillaries. And as I mentioned, when calcium is not properly regulated, and the calcium regulators are largely magnesium and vitamin K2. There's also boron involved, but if I just had to pick two, it's magnesium and K2, and most people are deficient in those two nutrients.
Yeah.
That's when calcium will get deposited into the soft tissue, into these tiny tubes, and then blood doesn't get to the area. You can't make energy in those tissues. Tissue function fails. And so it's so wide reaching, the number of conditions that this causes. But the first, I mean, neuropathy, lymphatic issues, obviously heart attacks. With any sort of heart issue, my main nutrients, the main three, are magnesium, vitamin K2, and vitamin E. There's a great book by Wilfred Shute called Vitamin E, The Key to a Healthy Heart. And vitamin E is probably the number one underrated heart supplement. These are two Canadian doctors back in the day. Can't remember what year. I want to say it was in the maybe 70s or 80s up at Canada, and they were giving high doses of vitamin E to their patients with variety of different issues, not only heart issues, but eye issues, neurological issues. And they found that they reversed their condition. And I'm talking about, I mean, 3,000 to 4,000 IUs, like huge doses. And of course, short term, as I mentioned, that balance. If you did that for years, especially if it's D-alpha tocopherol, which is one of the four isomers, vitamin E, there's four tocotrienols, four tocopherols, uh, alpha, beta, delta, gamma. And in my product, the mixed, you want to have alpha and gamma together because the gamma helps balance out the alpha. There are some studies showing that just taking alpha for a prolonged period can increase cancer risk, and that's because gamma balances it out. So you want to always get the mixed tocopherol, especially long term. Short term, if alpha is all you have, that's fine. If you're taking it for months, who cares? But yeah, this calcification piece, it's so wide reaching because the amount of people that message me with stones, gallstones, kidney stones, everyone's freaking out about oxalates, obviously. And with stones, they're a combination of minerals. So um, and there's even a relationship with mercury and magnesium deficiency. It's a broad topic, but the reason why someone would have stones in general is because they're magnesium and vitamin K2 deficient. And you stack on top of that heavy metal toxicity, specifically mercury, and yeah, they're going to be more prone to forming these calcium oxalate stones. And there's other stones as well. But yeah, if you have enough magnesium, that'll bind to the oxalate, and you won't have issues. But the whole oxalate topic, I've made posts on this. I mean, ascorbic acid supplementation that people freak out about, that I would say it's 5% or less of the population. I don't know the exact percent. Definitely 10% less. I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there, but people with a genetic predisposition to forming oxalate crystals in their body that'll cause, kidney problems and things. Yeah, maybe that population should never supplement ascorbic acid, or if they do, it should be very low dose. For me personally, I've taken tens of grams of ascorbic acid and had no issues. And a lot of it too is just dehydration. I mean, not minerals, but there's this fear of drinking plain water, which I disagree with. That is going to cause oxalates. If you're spun out with all these people that say, "Oh, never drink plain water, always add salt." I drink my easy flow structured water from Mitolife. I don't add minerals to it, and I'm still alive. It's reverse osmosis water with other processes in it that go into the filtration process. I think just a lack of fluids in general coming in also increase the predisposition to these stones. But I wanted to touch on the stones because that does relate to this calcification topic.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. And I'm sure you get questions about it a lot. So it's important that we touch on some of the things that like come your way often, especially because it is so common. But like, okay, so summarizing before we move on, because we're going into to Lipofuscin. I'm saying it the same way that you are. Okay. Porsche. So basically, like it's funny is I have it written down sort of like in the way that you said it. Like I literally wrote down in front of me. It's basically mineral deposits in soft tissues or blood vessels linked to cardiovascular aging. And you literally you broke it down in exactly, like obviously better than me, but that's what I jotted down because, and you're right. It seems like we can focus, like just one whole episode, you could just be on calcification alone because it is so broad and there are so many different roads that we can go down with it. But I think for the most part, people get the gist. Obviously this is all wrapping back to what? Obviously it's oxidative stress and it's chronic inflammation, right? And that's with everything. But I like the way that you presented it because I think that they can probably get a good gauge of why these really common conditions are occurring on such a massive scale because these are such mass deficiencies, right? Like bottom line, we don't have to make it complicated.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I see them, all three of these things, as mainly an obstruction to energy production, which is ultimately going to decrease tissue function. And yeah, if you can't make ATP, you're going to have, tissue failure, whether it's the testes, the ovaries, the kidneys, the heart, the bladder, parts of the brain, thyroid, wherever it is. Every tissue needs energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hence Mitolife. Okay, let's move forward into, I keep thinking about the list of questions that we've got at the end of this. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, how are we going to streamline this? But it's okay, friends. We're doing it. We're doing it. Like I kept saying earlier off air, we ain't stressing. We're just going to keep going. We're not stressing out. Okay. So Lipofuscin. This is, to my knowledge, and mostly because of you over the years, it's has to do with age, pigmentation, and oxidized fats and so forth. And we hear a lot of PUFA discussion, and that's gone up and down with, within the wellness communities. But how can you break this down in a, again, digestible way for people so that they understand?
Yep. So I look at the airport as a perfect sample size or a sampling of the population. And every time I fly, I'll just study people. It's just fun. I don't have headphones on. I'm not listening to music. I'm just observing. And especially on the airplane, because you're close up with people. And generally with older people, the older generation, the boomers, whatever it is, you'll see receding hairline, the almost like the Mr. Burns from The Simpsons hairstyle, and these dots that look almost like freckles on the forehead, and they go up to the top of the head. And then you'll see that as well on their forearms. And a lot of those people are going to order alcohol on the plane, which I'll get into later because I've seen that. And that is lipofuscin. It's age pigment, and it is caused primarily by a depletion of vitamin E over time from consuming a lot of polyunsaturated fats out of balance with saturated fats while depleting their vitamin E. And even though vegetable oils contain vitamin E, because people make this argument on social media all the time, uh, it's heat sensitive. So when you heat canola oil, you will destroy the vitamin E in the canola oil when you cook with it. No vitamin E, a lot of PUFA. That combines with heavy metals, specifically aluminum. And if someone's prone to hemochromatosis or excess iron, those people, particularly Irish descent, they tend to be, because a lot of people developed that during the potato famine, where their body just adapted to hold on to iron. I'm not one of those. I lose iron very easily. But for the people that do hold on to iron, they're especially prone to lipofuscin. And it's essentially this garbage that's made up of discarded mitochondria. There's things called basically autophagosomes that wrap around mitochondria that are being discarded, and they'll get sent to this garbage recycling center in your cell called the lysosome. And this is a sac that's full of hydrolytic digestive enzymes, essentially. So these enzymes pull water out of the compounds that are drawn into it, and it'll also bring in damaged proteins as well. So you could just think of, I don't have trash pickup up here because I'm off grid, but if you live in a city and you have trash pickup, the garbage truck comes, gets your trash and recycling, drives off, and you have an empty bin now to refill. What happens with lipofuscin is it'll fill that sac in the lysosome of your cell, but it won't be able to empty. And when it can't empty, you get mainly impaired autophagy. If any of you have ever been into fasting, like I did years ago, intermittent fasting and caloric restriction, and you were into this anti-aging thing of increasing autophagy, which you could do through supplementation or through extreme dieting, that process is impaired with lipofuscin stuck in your lysosome or your cells. And it's a scary thing because, as far as we know, there's no way to remove it. There's some pharmaceutical products that have been talked about the last 10 years that might remove it. But as far as natural therapies, there's nothing to my knowledge that exists out there yet. We can just slow the accumulation. And how we can slow the accumulation largely is vitamin E. That's the majority of the studies. When you search vitamin E, lipofuscin on PubMed, a lot of it's cultured cells and rodents, but I don't think that is invalid. It's still something to look at, especially when it's not one study, but it's dozens and dozens of studies. And there have been dozens of studies showing that sufficient vitamin E intake slows that accumulation of lipofuscin, because vitamin E gets incorporated into the cell membranes, into the mitochondrial membranes, and that will help to buffer that polyunsaturated fat intake and also protect from the oxidative stress from heavy metals, and overall just support cellular function. But funny enough, alcohol consumption, as I mentioned, when it's chronic and overdone, like your day drinkers or your daily drinkers or excessive drinkers, if someone goes out and has, a bunch of beers once a week or a bunch of shots on the weekend, Friday or Saturday night, that is a recipe for increasing lipofuscin accumulation. However, a microdose, especially in like tincture form, like I take alcoholic nettle root tincture for my testosterone, to free my testosterone because it lowers sex hormone binding globulin. That, especially in like tincture form, alcoholic tincture form, that will definitely help reduce lipofuscin accumulation. It's just so funny that everybody makes this blanket thing that, I think Huberman said there's no safe amount of alcohol, or you hear that. But what about tinctures? That these things that have been used for centuries. Um, there is a benefit to alcohol, to ethanol. It is lipofuscin. People that say that have no clue the relationship with alcohol and lipofuscin. And there is a study on that. It's cultured rat myocytes. So again, it's not a human study, but to me, it's still worth looking at. So that's just kind of a very interesting
Branch off.
lipofuscin, yeah, lipofuscin connection. So you don't have to drink, but also red light therapy helps as well, because there's this interesting light effect to lipofuscin that it autofluoresces. So it's a brown yellow pigment, but it responds to light. It actually glows when it's hit with ultraviolet and blue light. Um, and then it will emit green light in different way. And our body is basically like a light show all the time. So we use extreme low frequency UV light for cell communication. And there's a lot that's mediated by light. I mean, the circadian rhythm, quantum health people take this to the extreme. I mean, it's definitely a part of human health, but um, it's not everything. And I think that is one of the biggest harms to lipofuscin is it's throwing off the light show at a microscopic level in our body, and that causes a lot of harms because we use light for as I mentioned, cell signaling and different things.
Yeah. Then we could do a whole episode just on that alone too. You're right. It's just like there's so much to tackle. But one thing that I did want to ask you that's coming up is that it would make sense to me. I'm going to pretend like I haven't learned this over the years. But it just, again, it would make sense to me that, and you don't have to go into it too much, but that vitamin C would also be a big player when it comes to lipofuscin and how that is sort of very synergistic, especially when it comes to vitamin E and also vitamin A, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah. All the nutrients that's the fun part of what I research is all the interconnectedness of everything. And yeah, once vitamin E donates an electron to neutralize a free radical, whether it's, usually it's in the case of the lipid peroxidation process starting, and then vitamin E will jump in and sacrifice itself and donate an electron to stop that domino effect of oxidizing fats in your cell or mitochondrial membrane. Once that occurs, vitamin E is spent, and it's called the tocopheroxyl radical, and the ascorbic acid will come in and donate an electron to regenerate vitamin E so it could do its job again. And
Fascinating. It's really fascinating.
it is. And then there's things that work together to regenerate vitamin C. I did a post recently on vitamin B3, and it's specifically NADH that helps regenerate vitamin C. And so there's nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. There's the precursor, which is B3, whether it's, all those crazy NR, NMN, straight NAD plus. But I prefer niacin, or even better, nicotinamide. Also, it's called nicotinamide on PubMed, but it's called niacinamide in supplement form. That niacinamide boosts NAD by it's only about 10%. But I like the 500 milligram to 1500 milligram a day dose. So kind of divided. I generally it's a water soluble vitamin, so I recommend people take niacinamide 3 times a day, split up instead of all at once. But that's something to help from before or after alcohol consumption, or even underslept, or all sorts of different things. That NAD to NADH ratio goes down, meaning we have less NAD with a lot of assaults to our physiology, lipofuscin being one of them. But yeah, to your point, we have enough B3 to make NAD, to make reduced NADH. NADH will regenerate vitamin C. Vitamin C can regenerate vitamin E, and it all kind of plays into each other So I'm not just like coming out with supplements willy-nilly randomly. The whole MitoLife line it's an interconnected thing where yes, there's some other things I want to add. I would like to at some point come out with an iron supplement because I feel like that is really important for a lot of people, especially women that are developing a baby in their womb. But there's selenium, there's boron, there's other nutrients that um, are super helpful for a lot of these things that I'm talking about. Like selenium's actually been found to slow lipofuscin accumulation as well. So fish, oysters, as far as whole food
Yeah.
uh, can help. So.
I kind of look at, this whole not discussion, but the body in general and how it works and just the synergy between vitamins and minerals and just all of the processes that go on. In my mind, this is where I go. I look at it as a web, like a spider web, and like everything it's just this massive interconnected web, right? And and that might overwhelm people. And even sometimes I get overwhelmed by it because I'm just like, wow, like I could never even, like I could study this for 30 years and I would still not even get to the to the centers, so to speak, because there's just so much to learn and so much to discover and uncover about the synergistic quality of how everything works. But it's also really cool and really fascinating. And wow, can it make a dent if you get things even halfway going with the right supplementation and the ways that we can, both feed and then mitigate appropriately and accordingly. So it's just fascinating to me, like even just sitting here having this conversation, like I know, and, I've learned and all that, but just like to review it like this and to talk about it again, it really is so mind blowing. It's the complexity and the miracle of our body is just mind blowing. I mean, don't you agree?
Yeah, we've talked about it before,
We
how
have.
symptoms, like going off symptoms is okay. And
Mm-hmm.
when you implement some of these things, you do feel better. I know that was my personal experience
Yeah.
without even blood tests because you're filling in these gaps.
Okay, so why don't we dive into fibrosis now? And I personally get a lot of questions about this, and I think oftentimes that revolves around dissolve it all, which I'm sure you're going to mention in a second. But I find this part of the protocol to be so fascinating because we've got a guest. Sorry for those of you that are not watching. I have to say, is that lava?
That is lava.
Hi,
Yeah.
Lava. I was hoping he'd make a little appearance. But so yeah, fibrosis. And obviously, like you do what I think is an excellent job of breaking this down. No pun intended. But it really does have to do with connective tissue and sort of what happens in our body. And so I would love for you to sort of just again give us some information about fibrosis that's easy to understand for our listeners.
Yeah. So whenever we have tissue injury, we have fibrosis occur. And then if it's, or I'm sorry, fibrin, which is kind of like a band-aid that goes to the site of injury, patches it up, and there's normal, processes that go on. But when it's prolonged, whether it's post-surgery, uh, or or prolonged oxidative stress.
He's trying to get in. I knew it.
He
He
is.
he
He
is.
is
He's trying to
coming
be,
up here.
he's a star. He's a star.
A lot of people have heard of like pulmonary fibrosis, which is, lung fibrosis, cirrhosis of the liver. That's a form of fibrosis. Even Crohn's disease, scleroderma. There's different skin fibrosis conditions. There's
He's not taking no for an answer.
right. There's a
For those of you who can't see, and because the majority of people who listen to this show are listening versus watching, but Matt has two black cats, and one of them has decided to join the show. So, and we welcome him. He's a star all on his own.
exactly. So, but whether it's the liver, the lung, the heart, the kidney, the skin, those are common places where prolonged fibrosis leads to tissue degeneration. And it's essentially, in a nutshell, like an excessive buildup of fibrous connective tissue in the extracellular matrix of areas of the body that have been injured. So, basically scar tissue essentially. And what's funny is kind of not to complicate this, but going back to um, lipofuscin for a minute, there are these cells called fibroblasts that are uh, found in our skin, and those are related to fibrosis. So if we don't have tissue injury, the fibroblast cells do not divide, and that's a bad thing for lipofuscin because that means that lipofuscin will just stay there. But when cells divide, like it's called non-mitotic cells, like they tell us in the heart and the brain, but that's questionable if our heart brain cells can never divide. I've heard mixed things on that. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that the fibroblasts don't divide, the lipofuscin stays there. If they do divide, the lipofuscin will actually be cut in half, and some of the lipofuscin will actually leak out in that process and basically be detoxified. So that's something that I neglected to mention earlier that I've never said before, whether in a post or a podcast about lipofuscin, that a good way to detoxify it is with cell division because it basically dilutes it 50-50. So in the case of tissue injury, that's actually a good thing for lipofuscin, funny enough, as long as it's not a prolonged process. And when it is prolonged, we get those conditions that I mentioned, fibrosis of the heart, of the liver, of the skin, scleroderma, and they come with all these different side effects. And lung fibrosis can actually be caused by, for example, tuberculosis or pneumonia. I had walking pneumonia growing up as a kid. I had to go on medication for it. It was really intense. But if any conditions prolonged in whatever tissue or organ, it's like inflammation, irritation, inflammation, scar tissue formation, fibrosis is a way to think of it simply. Fibrosis is like the end product. And to get rid of it, one of the best therapies is systemic enzyme therapy, because what are called proteolytic enzymes do, nattokinase and serrapeptase, or in the literature it's called serratiopeptidase. It's weird that they call things different names in the PubMed literature. It confuses people because you can try to search for the ingredients of MitoLife supplements. You're like, I can't find it. Where's niacinamide? Well, it's nicotinamide. Same thing with serrapeptase. It's serratiopeptidase. And those will go in and break up that excess scar tissue systemically. So you take, and just to back up, nattokinase is originally derived from the fermented soy product natto, which tastes disgusting. I've tried it. I've tried fermenting it at home essentially once. It was really bad. One of the few sources of vitamin K2, though, which is interesting. I mean, in MK7 form, MK4 K2 is found throughout animal foods and cheeses. But serrapeptase, that's from the Japanese silkworm, and that's what the silkworm uses to dissolve its cocoon, is this enzyme, serrapeptase. And the cocoons are really, really hard material, which is fascinating. But when you take these as a supplement, and right now mine are not from soy, they're not derived from the silkworm, they're just cultured in a lab, just the bacteria is cultured over and over again. And I have other enzymes in there as well, and bromelain and things. But you take my products called Dissolve It All in the morning on an empty stomach before a meal, ideally. I use an enteric coated capsule called Dr. Caps. So it survives the stomach acid, goes into the small intestine, and you're able to basically absorb more of it. And it circulates in the body anywhere from 12 to 24 hours, maybe even beyond that. It kind of varies. Well, let's just say it circulates in the body for about a day. So I personally take 3 capsules every morning on an empty stomach. And this is one of my primary, pro-youthing or anti-aging, whatever you want to call it, strategies, is systemic enzyme therapy, because we're all dealing with oxidative stress. We're all dealing with tissue injury, not only from calcification and fibrosis, but heavy metals, EMF exposure. I mean, any inflammation will contribute to this process of fibrosis. And once again, we're talking about inhibiting oxygen, blood flow, getting to tissue, inhibiting energy production. And it's not just ATP is the energy currency of the cell. It's ATP is what allows protein folding to properly occur in this dance with structured water. And I had a podcast where I went into this and my thoughts on cancer and things. But ATP is not just like dollars that we spend in our body to like do functions. It's way more complicated than that. But to simplify it, it ATP allows proper protein folding, and it works with this exclusion zone water in our body to well, basically ATP allows us to structure the water in our body, and that allows for protein folding. If I had to put it in a sentence. But that's
That's good.
but
No, it's good.
yeah, but that's really what it comes down to. Once again, all the conditions I mentioned with calcification, uh, lipofuscin, it's a little more complex.
Yeah.
But fibrosis, all of the conditions that come from fibrosis are numerous. And when I try to simplify health for people with all these different conditions, like we were talking about at the beginning, it's talking about these things because these will move the needle for so many different things in the body.
Yeah, it's amazing because my go-to response for people that write me about Dissolve It All is you need to go to the reviews. Like go to the reviews on MitoLife website and read them. It's fascinating because there's such a wide array of testimonies with so many different quote unquote conditions or diagnoses, whatever, however you want to call it, and it's so fun to read through them.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes I mean, a lot of people have, I was a C-section baby, or women that have had surgery, whether for pregnancy or for cosmetic procedures, breast implant removal. I mean, there's so many applications, or women that still have breast implants. That's a constant source of scar tissue formation. The applications for this are so wide reaching that I can't think of anyone that shouldn't be on systemic enzymes, really.
My personal experience with it, and I've told you this, numerous times, but I'd say this and vitamin E, but I don't think I've ever seen, ooh, I don't know what happened with the light just there, right there, just turned white all of a sudden. But I don't think I've ever seen a supplement work so quickly. So, cause some people are like, well, sometimes they take something and they're like, I don't really know. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure if it's working. And that whole, I'm like, well, it's doing something, like whether you think it is or not, or whether you feel something or not, like it's definitely doing something because there's input. But I don't think I've ever seen my body positively respond to something so fast as to when I've taken Dissolve It All. And that is what I tell people. And it's my experience. Doesn't mean it's everybody's experience. But it's, I think, probably the supplement that I get the most questions about regarding MitoLife, because it's, like you said, there's such a wide array of quote unquote conditions that people have, and so they think like, okay, like maybe they'll give it a shot, and then when they actually see what happens, they're like, oh my gosh, my cyst is gone.
Right.
As an example. So
Yeah, not to censor this show, but the whatever you want to call it, the pandemic that we experienced the last 5 years.
Gosh.
There have been studies on not only for people that got the jab, but even just people that were exposed to it, serrapeptase and systemic enzymes in general being beneficial for that exposure.
Yeah.
Whether it's blood clotting, whether it's nasal congestion, chronic cough, excess mucus, the cytokine storm, the systemic enzymes help with that by supporting the inflammatory process, reducing the overactivation of the immune system. I mean, it goes on and on with the benefits of systemic enzymes. I think immune health is kind of on the back burner for most people until they get an infection, whatever it is. And then, oh, I better, you know, take my honey and lemon and my vitamin C and, you know, get on things now. But no, you want to keep the system strong before you get exposed to whatever it is. And one of my passions the last several years, I would say the last 3 years specifically, is high dose melatonin. It's something that is so fascinating to me because I demonized it for years. And that has application for what I just talked about. And it's involved in this process called phase separation. It's required for that in the cell. And so many critical processes. It's basically mitochondrial fuel, not for energy, but for for mitochondrial function. And most people are underdosing melatonin. If they're taking it, they're taking 3 or 5 milligrams, which is not enough, whether for EMF production, protection, for protection from viral infection, for just supporting the proteins in the mitochondria and the respiratory chain. You need higher doses. And so that's been one of the most fascinating supplements. And a lot of the ones that I have on my website, like even in the case of fibrosis, vitamin B3 has been shown to help prevent fibrosis. It acts kind of like an antioxidant or an antifibrotic agent. And vitamin B3 is actually very common because all the salts that lower NAD, which will tax our vitamin B3. So to me, that is one kind of a foundational supplement to take. And the benefit of niacinamide is it's non-flushing, unlike niacin, which you get the sunburn effect of, turn red. And but as we said earlier, I mean, all of these, it's like the web, like you said, all of these things play into each other. And it's not just systemic enzymes for fibrosis. It's also vitamin B3 and all of the other things that go together. That's why I developed this product line to just balance all of that. So
yeah, no, it was a good explanation. And it brings me back to this saying, and it sounds a little cliche, but it's something that always sticks in my mind. And, I've had, some of the listeners that are regulars of this show, they know that I have walked quite a health journey, right? And still in it to a large degree. But it brings me back to this quote that goes something along the lines of, maintenance is always cheaper than repair. And I feel like with what you just said, like it's really important to think about how you can strengthen your body in this way. Like everyone says, oh yeah, terrain, but like, what does that really mean? Right. So you can toot the saying all you want and talk about like, well, you got to strengthen your terrain, but it's like, okay, so that's why we're doing the show, right? Because how do we actually do that in a way that makes sense and that doesn't cost $1 million or that doesn't require bazillions, testing and all that? Because a lot of people, to your point earlier, don't have that ability, and so it's important to sort of get to the point where if something does happen, which unfortunately, I've walked that path where like you get an assault of some kind on top of all the other assaults that are already occurring, like you've touched on throughout the show or through the episode, but you get a viral assault, you get something that really challenges your mitochondria. Stuff like this, something like systemic enzymes can be so valuable and so critical to like how your body responds when that assault comes your way. So I like that explanation, and it just, I think it's helpful because I feel like a lot of people, at least my camp, right? And people always have questions about systemic enzymes. It's funny to me more than any other supplement.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the most common question I get with the systemic enzymes are, can I take other supplements with them? And I think there's this myth or this misconception that the systemic enzymes will act like activated charcoal, and activated charcoal adsorbs whether it's medication or, it's like an indiscriminate binder, more so than say like zeolite powder. Uh, Dissolve it all does not bind to like medications. It's they're proteolytic enzymes, so it will just target these specific uh, like fibrin and break down these excess proteins in the tissue. It's not going to affect, it's not going to break down vitamin E so that you don't absorb it. It's not going to break up vitamin K2. So I think it's just another like kind of overthinking thing that people do. I mean, my routine in the morning is I wake up, the cats want their breakfast. So I take my dissolve it all. I take 3 capsules with several gulps of water, make their breakfast. I usually eat breakfast, I don't know, 30 minutes or so after I wake up. And then I take my supplements after breakfast with my coffee. Generally, I'll take my gram of Shilajit, and then I'll take all the capsules. But what I have found is you have to find, if, if you take too many capsules and you're ingesting a lot of water after a meal, you could get like indigestion. So the timing's important of, maybe you take your capsules right before a meal. It doesn't have to be like exact to the minute when you take your supplements. It doesn't have to be that precise. Just get them in and take them in a way that works for you.
I think you're right when you said I think people overthink things. I think it's just like I think it's just where we're at, right? Like there's just so much information out there and people are saying all kinds of things and worry about this and worry about that, and we've made things so complex that we scare ourselves and we give ourselves anxiety when things are really a lot simpler than we've made them out to be. And I think that like everyone just needs to settle down a little bit, myself included, because sometimes I can get wrapped up too, I mean, that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say if there's nothing else, I mean, actually what I wanted to say is as you were speaking and you definitely articulated fibrosis really well, and it's helpful even for me, to be able to answer questions for people if they come my way. But I think about something like systemic enzymes as like a remodeler, right? Like it kind of like comes in to like, I don't know, tell me if this makes sense, but like it comes in as like a house and it sort of remodels the excess fibrin and like the, I don't even know how to say it, like the extracellular matrix, like safely,
Yeah.
right? So instead of like destroying something in a way that's unhelpful, it actually comes in and like remodels things so that it's stable for the body moving forward. Does that even make any sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, and especially if you have the function of like lysyl oxidase and, the copper dependent enzyme, you're not like a lot of people the last 5 years megadose zinc without copper, which even when I was, back in the day, and I still say it to this day, is it's that balance, right? Of you want to take copper with zinc. But for collagen production, you need ascorbic acid and copper. And a lot of people now, unfortunately, because of these extreme ideologies, demonize both of those supplements, and their collagen's going to suffer for it. So if you do that combination of and you don't have to megadose these things, you don't have to megadose ascorbic acid, but just making sure that it's coming in consistently. And you could test this on like the Oligo scan to see your tissue levels of ascorbic acid. But if you have ascorbic acid, copper, obviously zinc. I mean, zinc is like such a foundational on the level of magnesium. Like it's such a critical mineral in the body that has just way more. I mean, our human genome, the DNA transcription. I mean, so many like foundational processes that make us human or zinc dependent. But the ascorbic acid, the copper, dissolve it all, or systemic enzyme combo is so important for, like you said, that skin regulation process. And I'm just very cautious of skin aging. I feel like a lot of people are overdoing the sun exposure now. I don't know if it's because of Liver King or Paul Saladino or whatever it is. And then you have the opposite, Brian Johnson having an umbrella when he walks outside or whatever it is. There's a balance of not overdoing sunlight. I know here in the summer, I burn very easily. The UV index up here in North Idaho can get quite high for several months. And so I am very cautious of how much time I spend outside. And if I can't control it, I'll wear a wide brimmed hat, a long sleeve shirt that's breathable. And that's my SPF. And I'll make sure that I'm getting sufficient ascorbic acid, vitamin E, and copper. And copper is required to make melanin, to have that natural sun protection. But yeah, I think people are just not aware of how easily they can age their skin with overdoing the ultraviolet light, which obviously there's a balance of near infrared light and red light, and that protects the chromosomes and protects from the photo damage, but only to a certain extent. It's not like the quantum health people are talking about. You also need those nutrients that I mentioned to have protection.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's complex in a way. You know, it's like the last thing we want to do is like overwhelm people, but I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of I how do I say this without sounding judgmental? I don't mean to be judgmental. I just think that it's easier to be extreme about things because I think extremism sells. And so I think what's happening, and I've alluded to this throughout the show, is that that's why people are so overwhelmed. It's just because like there's so many extreme messages that go on, and it's like if sunlight is great for us, so then okay, let's go sit in sunlight for 24 hours, like regardless of genetics, right? Or oh, I heard this food is good, okay, let's go buy 16 pounds of it and let's eat it until we fall over. You know what I mean? Like that's just like where people are at today. And I just feel like let's just come back to some balance here with it all. You know, yes, things are complex, and yes, we can talk about each and every subtopic for 4 hours straight, as many people could probably gauge just by this discussion alone, which we've talked about so many things, but to dig into each and everything, it takes time. But I think like the overarching theme is like, let's just dial it back a little bit because things don't have to be as complicated as we're often making them out to be.
I love it. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, with that said, we've got some questions to cover. We've got some questions to cover, part two of this conversation. And so what I think I'm going to do is I think we should just be as rapid fire as possible with these. Some of the questions have been covered in the discussion already. And I just want to say this ahead of time, just for time's sake. Friends, if we do not get to your question, I am so sorry. I apologize. You know, there's just so much to cover, and we can make a 9-hour episode at this point, but I'll just pick the ones that I think that we haven't touched on and try to get to as many as possible. So are you good with that?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Can or should vitamin E be cycled, or is there any time that we need to take breaks? And the second part of this question was what makes yours different, but for the sake of time, you did cover that already. So let's just go with the first part, which is, should it be cycled or can we take it year round?
Great question. So as I mentioned earlier, the 4 fat soluble vitamins balance each other out. So if someone were to take, if someone were to take massive amounts of vitamin E over time, like I mentioned, the Shoot brothers, you would eventually cause a vitamin A deficiency, and especially depending on your genetics. Like personally, I have a higher requirement according to my genetic mutations of vitamin A, and I don't need to take it every day because it's stored in the liver and it's stored for quite a long time. But I did find that once I got on cod liver oil, which has a good amount of it, and I've even taken retinol palmitate by itself, I feel amazing. I feel more cold tolerant. I feel just more grounded, more energized. And this is the beautiful thing about supplementation going off symptoms is it is safe to experiment like that as long as you're not, going way overboard. But the vitamin A relationship to vitamin E is never ever talked about to my knowledge. And that is the only thing. But you would have to take, probably if you're taking, 6+ capsules of my vitamin E a day, that's when you might run into that vitamin A issue, where you might want to add in, Rosita cod liver oil, which is a product that I like, regardless of the omega-3. The vitamin E helps balance that out. And I think the benefits outweigh the detriment there. And vitamin E is not inherently evil. Obviously, we need some amount of it, just not like Rhonda Patrick doses of fish oil. So
I knew you were going to say something about her eventually. I was waiting. I was waiting. All right, but I think that's good advice, solid advice. I mean, and by the way, I should have said this in the very beginning, so forgive me, friends. But by any means, and Matt will obviously agree, this is not medical advice. So you still need to do what's best for you. Use discernment. I obviously need to come in with a disclaimer that we are not here to tell you what to do. So again, just important for me to state that off the bat. Okay, second question. Weather has been triggering my cold sores. Is there anything from MitoLife that can help me with this?
Oh, I would say the oyster and the beef liver, but I would more so I keep L-lysine on hand. That's if you Google that, it'll come up. But that is a really underrated supplement. I'm even considering adding that into MitoLife at some point. It's because it actually has a relationship to anemia.
Yes,
I mean, iron deficiency, there's so many, it's not just as people scream from the mountaintops, I think overly, but there's obviously there's the copper connection and there's all the different connections to iron, B vitamins, B12, B6. You'll see those as cofactors in several iron supplements. But the L-lysine one has been shown to actually increase iron utilization and absorption, but also obviously helps with cold sores. It's found in topical cold sore formulas.
That's the tongue tie.
Sorry. Yeah. Lava's shedding hair on me. But
I can't even see you at this point.
Right.
We've been recording on and off, friends, for a couple hours now, and so the lighting has changed for both of us. And so if you're not watching, we've looked different throughout this episode. But we're just like I've told Matt for the whole day, we're not stressing. We're just going real time here.
Exactly.
I can't even see him, though. It's been a journey today. So maybe if you follow us on social media, we'll talk about it later, but we don't have time to talk about all the ups and downs of today. I love the fact that you brought up lysine though, because this person may or may not know about it. Yep. And also if I could, lysine it's like an antagonist thing with arginine. And so maybe too, this person can look at foods that may also foods that are really high in that they could decrease. Yep. Because I know a little bit about this also, just because I've dealt with that in the past. And so increase your lysine and decrease your, maybe just input of arginine. Again, this is just things that I've tried or I've
absolutely,
that have helped. But all right, we good there?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe if you're on the elk velvet antler, take a break from that too while you're taking the lysine. Because I found personally that there is usually all lower. I mean, I've done crazy doses of elk velvet antler, which is a whole food supplement, so you can take massive amounts. But personally, if I am experiencing a cold sore, I'll just take a break from the EVA while I'm taking the lysine, and it usually takes care of itself really quickly. So.
Hi, we're back. I've told Matt on and off today that today's my first day as a host, because that's how many little mishaps we've had. And it just goes to show that, when I feel like it's warfare to some degree, you know what I mean? There's a lot to be said when things keep going wrong. You're on the right track, because we've had a lot of technical issues. It's also been really hilarious. We've made the best of it, but I've now lost my mic twice. So, like I said, we're just going with it. Okay. Next question. Let's see. Supplements that are good for insulin resistance if you cannot afford to take a GLP-1.
Magnesium and zinc probably are my number one. I would say Shilajit as well. Those are probably the top three. those are heavily, I mean, zinc is heavily involved in blood sugar regulation. I've done a lot of posts and videos on that. Magnesium is heavily involved as well in the utilization of carbs, proteins, and fats, which a lot of people don't know. Um, Digestit as well, just taking digestive enzymes with each meal could help, just to help the system, um, so you don't have as big of a spike. But Dr. Berg and a lot of these people, because I've done the keto thing over the years, insulin is so demonized, but it's not. I don't think it's the evil character that all the keto people make it out to be. It's not like the number one enemy. And it comes down to basically being vitamin and mineral deficient, specifically mineral deficient when it comes to blood sugar dysregulation. Like one thing when I was heavily into Ray Peat, eating sugar or higher carb increases your metabolic rate, which increases your nutrient requirements. That doesn't mean that sugar or carbs are bad. It just means that you need to increase the amount of minerals that you're consuming. Well, minerals and vitamins, but specifically minerals.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh.
I hesitate to even ask this question because our plan was to get more into this, and we just, like I said, we don't have the time, but in a very brief little way, I don't know how you dial this down, but what are your thoughts on the rage regarding peptides?
Yeah, so it's funny because we were talking about it the last few days. Like, I think we both experienced burnout. It really hit me the last month. It's making hard decisions, letting some people go. Sometimes we don't realize how stressed we are until we're out of it. That was kind of my situation. And realizing like, okay, I'm so depleted from this just chronic, prolonged stress that how do I recover? Of course, all the nutrients that I've talked about are huge. Like even I recently dealt with speaking of chronic stress, put like a couple $100,000 into a magnetic lodestone bathtub starting in 2022, and 3 different contractor teams screwed up as far as letting this leak go. So it was leaking, without going too deep into this story, since 2022. We're now in 2026. And every time I took a bath, it was leaking into the insulation, into the subfloor, into the OSB board, all the way down to my basement below the master bathroom. And I ended up having, fortunately, not Stachybotrys because I sent it into the lab, but I had penicillium, and I can't remember the other mold, but they both can cause neuroinflammation. Aspergillus, that's what it was. Aspergillus and penicillium. Stachybotrys is one of the worst, but those other 2 can be bad as well. And that could have contributed as well to stress, because causing brain inflammation. I bring all that up to say, after another 3 weeks of people being in and out of my house 5 days a week, which is a huge stress, I remodeled my bathroom. I got a copper bathtub, grounded to the earth, rod to earth. And I've been doing magnesium baths consistently, minimum 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes more. And I'm talking a full ancient minerals bag. So the 8-pound bags, I just dump it in. And that has been huge for recovering for my burnout. With that said, circling back to the peptides, I've been researching every possible thing to just expedite the recovery. I know it's a process. People say, don't rush, but I feel like it's individual how fast we want to go in recovering from whatever it is. In my case, burnout. So I started looking into peptides, and I came across mitochondrial peptides because to me, everything goes back to mitochondria, even burnout, not just adrenal, but just that feeling of being tired and fatigued. And I found lamipretide, also called SS31, which is pretty trendy. And then this thing called MOTC. And those are the 2 main mitochondrial peptides, to my knowledge, that people are using with great results. Some people are non-responders. I've been an incredible responder to SS31. Of course, it's a needle. It's not fun to poke yourself, but it's a 1/2 inch subcutaneous, basically insulin syringe with bacteriostatic water. You reconstitute this powder. This is the whole peptide thing. And depending on the dosage, I've just been doing a whole bottle of the SS31, which is 10 milligrams. But a lot of the research, there is clinical published research showing that it reverses mitochondrial dysfunction fairly quickly within months at a dose of 40 milligrams a day, which is pretty incredible. 30 to 40 milligrams. So the doses vary for all these peptides and depending on people's sensitivity and all of that. But that one's been used to reverse intolerance to exercise and inability to recover from exercise, which comes down to the mitochondria in our muscles. Just overall electron transport chain dysfunction, which a lot of the supplements I talk about help. Obviously, melatonin, vitamin K2. A lot of these help support mitochondrial function, but to have certain peptides and I think just a little short-term boost in addition to the things that I'm talking about can be extremely helpful. So back to your point of like these, you said earlier, like these advanced therapies that people tend to go to first, I think, should be after the foundational stuff, after the vitamins and minerals, after you've been taking them for months or maybe years. I mean, or people could do it all at once, but usually people do it wrong when they do it that way. So, I've had really good results so far with the SS31. That's been the one that I've been using. And is it for everyone? Definitely not. I would say definitely get your foundations down first and don't, this is an expensive peptide. It tends to be expensive in general. So supplements are a lot more affordable, like my MitoLife supplements. And that should definitely be the starting point before you start poking yourself with needles.
I mean, needles are not for everyone. My hand's raised again. Do you see that?
Oh,
My
yeah.
hand is raised. My hand is raised. I have a question, sir. No, I think that's good. I think it's good. I think it's good. Nothing is for everybody, right? I mean, I should say very few things are for everybody, but I think because there's so much talk about it, people are so invested in obviously feeling better, but like the latest and the greatest thing that's out and trending. And so it's natural that people would have this, but I think for you, it's more like, okay, well, to be determined, right? Like you're just kind of dipping your toes into this. And so without having any finite answers to anything, like you're seeing some progress with one or two, and stay tuned.
Yeah, and one of my guests, I think this must have been 4 or 5 years ago, Jan, he had a knee injury, and I've heard this over and over again that people, obviously not into the bone, but injecting like BPC 157 or TB as a TB 500 around the injured joint was the only thing that helped them recover from, like, say, a knee injury. I can say like little lozenges. I've taken capsules like oral BPC 157 or oral thymosin 1 alpha or whatever it is. I've had zero effect from the oral peptides, like absolutely no effect. And I've been consistent with them in the past. But the injectables so far, it's been like an immediate, I'd say within minutes, felt effect. So that kind of surprised me.
Yeah. Well, in a way it makes sense, but yeah, I'd be interested to see like what other people's experience would be with oral and so forth. But yeah, now the injectables are really, I think, what most people are interested in, right? Like,
yeah. And I think for physical injury too, I mean, it definitely, like if someone had a stubborn knee injury or stubborn, whatever joint injury, elbow injury, tennis elbow, I don't know what it is. Yeah. Ping pong, whatever. No,
what does everyone play now? Pickleball.
Oh, pickle. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, getting like my stack for that would be like dissolve it all, elk velvet antler, magnesium, melatonin at night, jellyfish collagen, maybe, uh, the zinc, vitamin C. I mean, basically my CLF protocol, but just naming like the main one, Shilajit, and then they add the injectable, BPC 157, TB, TB, whatever. I'm still learning all the names, the joint ones, and inject it around the elbow or the knee.
Yeah. Don't
I
ask
think
me.
that would massively accelerate the healing. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it makes sense. I mean, there's so much to dive in when it comes to, just all the options out there too. But I have heard a lot of success stories, and I've also heard the opposite, which is, kind of like what we're discussing. Like your chances are your results from something like adding peptides in are going to be exponentially better. As I was telling you off air, I just had a guest come on and say this about hormones. Like, people are so apt to just jump straight into peptides, but like, how are your hormones? Like, are your hormones balanced? Like, where are you from a vitamin and mineral perspective? And obviously, if that groundwork or that framework is dialed in, then your peptide is going to, or your peptides are going to work exponentially better. So that just makes logical sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And just for a resource, I have no affiliation. I don't know who runs this website, but I found one just because I was hours and hours and hours on websites and YouTube. Peptideinitiative.com is a really cool website. Just there's a catalog basically. So you click a drop down peptides and there's just dozens and dozens. And then it shows kind of what I talked about, a lot of the studies, starting dose, standard dose, advanced dose, and then the research behind it. And it's just easy to read. And then you could actually, there's the reconstituting calculator, so you don't screw yourself up, and you could type in the numbers and do it instead of using Chat GPT or whatever people are using.
That's good. No, that's a good. We can even put that in the show notes for people if they would like to access that. Yeah.
I would. I mean, I have a IV clinic near me, and a lot of these. I scoff at a lot of these clinics where there's red light beds and Myers cocktail, and even if they're injecting methylene blue or curcumin, or they're injecting all sorts of NAD injections, obviously. I really wish that they were doing peptides instead, because a lot of people, they just don't have the courage, balls, whatever you want to call it, to inject even subcutaneous. That's just scary. It's sticking yourself with something. But in my perfect world, all of these IV clinics where you sit in a chair and you get a slow drip, they would all be replaced with peptide clinics. I think that would be a lot more effective, be a lot cheaper, hopefully. And I think people will get better results. I did a post recently on the Myers cocktail. I have a pharmacist doctor friend in town that carries my supplements. We just talked for hours. And the last time I was talking to him, he gave me the Myers cocktail bottle that they dilute with the saline bag, and slow drip at an IV clinic. Horrible forms of nutrients, low dose. They're using pyridoxine chloride instead of pyridoxine 5-phosphate, form of vitamin B5. That form makes me itchy. I don't talk about just injecting it straight into my vein. It's and it's just not. People have this misconception that, I mean, that, and I think this is where the allure of peptides come in, is they think that it's all about absorption, and we haven't been. The reason why everyone's messed up is because we're not absorbing our supplements, which is totally ridiculous. The absorption of non-GMO, and my MitoLife one is non-GMO cornstarch derived ascorbic acid powder, AA, is equivalent to a vitamin C IV injection if it's taken properly. So there are graphs that you can find of ascorbic acid powder supplementation, and you see the plasma level of vitamin C. And if you take it, let's say every hour for 3-4 hours, you will peak. And if you keep taking it, you will stay where you would stay if you got an IV vitamin C infusion. Wow. So, and this goes for a lot of the other supplements. As I mentioned, the niacinamide, even though it's 10%, okay, if you're taking it throughout the day And chronically, you have a chronically increased, 10+% NAD level increase. So it just kind of bothers me, this whole mentality. And it's all been the marketers that convinced the health community that liposomal, injectable, the Quicksilver Scientifics type companies. And I'm not bashing that company. I love their bitters, but everything else I don't really care for. It, they think that it's better. You're getting more. You're actually getting less value. When you compare it dollar for dollar, you are getting less value from all of these really complex, expensive supplements than, say, the MitoLife one, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Next question. Problems with breast pain. Is there something that I could do to mitigate this?
I mean, without knowing her history, I think dissolve it all is a good bet. Just systemic enzymes to decrease the scar tissue there. It definitely can't hurt. And if it does help, it would probably be fairly quickly, especially if she took, 2 or 3 capsules every morning on an empty stomach. Also, red light therapy. I know you're a big fan of Gembered and Andrew's work, Andrew Latour. That's kind of like an all encompassing support that I see. So I'm a huge fan of Andrew's panels.
Me too.
I was fortunate to get like a full body one before he stopped selling it. Um,
Lucky.
and yeah, and I like hitting the torso with that. And I would also combine it with the systemic enzymes and see how that works.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also, obviously this person probably, and I don't, maybe they have, but what comes to my mind is like, where are their hormones? What's going on there? Things like that. Maybe just a little bit of maybe testing would help if it's something that's really bothering them. I'm sure you would agree.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Next one. Let's see. Genetics and supplements. Advice on how to go about pairing the two.
Yeah, so I've had a couple podcasts on this, and I think it is overemphasized to some degree. Like people really freak out about, like I saw there's a scare with vitamin E and genetic mutations that taking vitamin E can cause harm, and people were shouting about that. I do think it's overblown generally, but it is good to know which supplements you have a higher requirement for, whether it's vitamin D3, like I mentioned, or niacinamide in my case. I know Chris Masterjohn's talked about how vitamin B2 or riboflavin changed his life based on his genetics. And he used, I forget, I think he might have his own website now with that stuff. But there are options. I had a show on self decode, and that one obviously 23andMe and Ancestry, which I think is a little different, not as in depth. And there's questions about them selling your data
Yeah.
there. Um, but yeah, I do think generally it's overemphasized. Um, but it's kind of a fun rabbit hole as long as you don't become obsessed with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I actually asked this question yesterday on my Instagram account. Well, I put it on both accounts. I put it on the podcast account and my regular account, which is like, I was interested to see if people wanted a show or an episode on MTHFR or even COMT, like the COMT mutation, because that's something of interest of me or for me as well. So I think it'd be fun to dive into. But, and of course, these things play a role, and it can be worth knowing, right? But it's kind of like you have to be cautious in terms of like how you go about the genetic testing for sure these days, to your point.
Yeah, not getting lost in it because I think people think they found, that it's all about genetics and how you respond. And if you
Yep.
take something that doesn't vibe with your genetics, you're going to die. And it's not that
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be overwhelming and overblown, I think,
Yep.
like you said.
Yep.
Okay, moving right along. Let's see. Should lithium orotate be cycled and cautions with other drugs?
Yeah. So on the same train as the genetics, the most interesting thing about lithium to me is its relationship with vitamin B12. I mentioned vitamin B12's connection with iron utilization earlier and absorption. And I mean, the B vitamins are like, I mean, they're so foundational to human health, the function that they have, not only for energy production, but so many other foundational things in the body that um, I have a mutation with multiple B12 mutations. So transport, utilization, absorption. For people like myself, lithium can change their life because lithium actually transports vitamin B12 into the cell. So you can, like, I got a urine test once where you could see your B12 in your urine. If it's super high, or even B12 is high on a blood test, generally that means that you're not sufficient in it. It's just that it's not getting into the cell. That's usually what that means. So if you start taking lithium, you should see a drop in your B12, and that is a good thing because that means that it's getting inside the cell where it's required, and lithium is like a car to transport it in. So that is one of like the, I mean, because most people think about, bipolar disorder and all the neurological benefits of lithium is kind of like a chill pill, which it is, but it also regulates calcium, and back to the whole calcification issue, it fits in there. So improving heart health, blood vessel health, blood sugar regulation as well. Back to the insulin question, it can help improve glucose metabolism by supporting the pancreas. Um, so many things beyond just neuroprotection and regulating the neurotransmitters and emotional stability. As far as does it have to be cycled, uh, I don't think that's a bad idea. When I take high doses of it, like today I took 3 capsules, sometimes I'll take 4. That's 30 to 40 milligrams. Each capsule is 10 milligrams. I have a pretty high tolerance for it. Some people that are really sensitive, one capsule will, make them feel like they're high or that they're euphoric or whatever. Um, in that case, yeah, you probably don't want to take it daily. Maybe you want to take 10 milligrams every other day or a couple times a week, or whatever it is. Personally, my strategy with it is I'll generally take one a day. Some days, like today, if I feel inclined, I'll take 3 or 4, and then I'll take the next day or two off. It's just something that you have to experiment with and see how you feel. What I found with the lithium myself is if I feel more sensitive, not like easily triggered, but just I just feel like more emotionally sensitive, I overdid it. So I'll kind of back off on the dosing.
No, I mean, I should say I'm no expert in lithium, but to me that makes sense, right? Like you can really just like use that as sort of a gauge, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, it's bound to uratic acid versus the pharmaceutical is bound to carbonate. So the carbonate form is less absorbed. They generally prescribe 1,200 to 1,600 milligrams. With mine, being that it's so much more bioavailable, you need way less. Um, but still, I mean, it's still even 3, 4 capsules is still a smaller amount than you would get from that, 1,200, 1,600 milligrams of lithium carbonate. Because we're talking about elemental um, minerals. So for a mineral to be absorbed, it needs to be bound to something, whether it's an amino acid or in this case, uratic acid orotate. And whatever it's bound to has its own benefit, but um, forget where I was going with that.
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, all in all though, I think your overall message is like it is that, I think that it's fairly safe. I think okay, I'll tell you what has come across my way.
Yeah.
Is it safe? I think that that's too like a question that people have
Yeah.
that probably coincides with cautions with other drugs and like what this person was asking, because for whatever reason, there might be like a stigma that it might not be super safe to take or super safe to take with other things that they're taking. So I don't know if that points you in the direction that we're sort of going in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is the elemental dosing of the supplement differs per depending on the form. So for example, the amount of metallic lithium and lithium orotate is different from the amount of metallic or elemental lithium in lithium carbonate.
Mm.
That's something that gets into conversions, and it's something you could use like AI, Chat GPT to solve. And it's actually very complicated because they don't make it easy in studies. If you're breaking down clinical studies on these things and you're converting, rodent studies and the dosage that they use, um, you actually AI is very helpful in converting it. You're saying, hey, I'm using this form. How many milligrams of actual lithium are in lithium orotate? And then compare it to this. And you could do that with any supplement, whether it's magnesium or zinc or.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done it. I've used ChatGPT for conversions. Just it's so helpful because you're right. They don't make it easy.
Yeah,
And ChatGPT for some of those, for some things, it's incredibly helpful.
definitely.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's move on to, oh, you know what? Let's see. Let's go back to this one. I was diagnosed with small segment Barrett's esophagus. Could dissolve at all help with this? Also, I might try your digestive enzymes. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the name of that? Small.
It's called small segment Barrett's esophagus. And I do know a little bit about this, but I'm going to refrain because I don't want to say the wrong thing. So yeah, if you can pull it up.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's a condition where intestinal type metaplasia, characterized by salmon colored velvet like lining, extends less than 3 centimeters above the gastroesophageal junction. It's a pre-malignant condition often caused by chronic long-standing GERD. Typical GERD symptoms are heartburn. Okay. Yeah, to me, I mean, my gut, pun intended, reaction to this is zinc deficiency, and also chloride deficiency. I mean, I wish I knew this years ago, how critical zinc is to make hydrochloric acid, and also just salt, chloride, hydrochloric. You need salt. People with a lot of gut issues, I think, tend to be zinc deficient. And the cool thing about the zinc that I chose to offer with MitoLife is it's bound to L-carnosine amino acid, which has been shown in clinical studies to help prevent and even reverse peptic ulcers, bleeding ulcers, and support intestinal integrity. Because if the intestinal lining gets permeable, that's where a lot of issues begin. But also just not being able to make enough hydrochloric acid. And obviously, gut health is very complicated. You have, bicarbonate is required to neutralize acid after you're done digesting. You need the minerals that I mentioned to even just make hydrochloric acid in the first place. There's obviously the microbiome influence. There's endotoxin. There's so many things, right? Curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
No, I agree. And I think, like I'm someone who actually takes like a supplement to help with stomach acid because I have seen, sort of, yeah, I mean, for me to like start diving into my story would it would take all day, but it's super helpful. What comes to my mind is this person, whether or not they have a history of PPIs too, I think makes a huge difference. But I will say that I'm so glad that because that really destroys, I mean, long term, like you're going to see such a decrease of like stomach acid production, which is really the opposite. Most people that have like, GERD or acid reflux, they have low stomach acid. And, a lot of people think that they have too much, but they really have too little. So, when you have a long history of PPI use, that can just really wreck you, and coming back from that, I think a lot of people have a hard time. So I think something like zinc would be helpful. And I know for me personally, your zinc carnosine product was a godsend for me because I had like this massive stomach flu that I got hit with maybe a year and a half ago. And I used the zinc carnosine product to help repair my gut. And it really helped me a lot. And so, whether it's upper GI or lower GI or a combination of both, I I have a feeling that zinc is a major player or a deficient, I should say, like one that's missing from a lot of people that have gut issues. Just my gut instinct too, pun intended.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and I should mention the probiotic that I have. I recently, in the last couple of years, added bacteriophages, which is really interesting. There's only a couple companies. I think Thorne just added it to their line. But it's a trademark product called
Mhm.
Pre4 Pro, and it's kind of like a prebiotic, but at extremely low doses, like we're talking 15 milligrams. It actually um, helps to break down bacteria that shouldn't be there. And then combined with these spore-based probiotics, it actually can, they're essentially like influencer strains. They can influence the whole microbiome. And I've noticed a benefit if I'm consistent with that one. The key is being consistent with it.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Fluoroform is your probiotic. And I have that here as well.
Yep.
And what's interesting about the Pre4 Pro is that that's what I give Pearl. And for those who don't know, I have two dogs, and one has had, it just has a long history of gut, like more like dysbiosis. And she has the Pre4 Pro in her
Excellent.
probiotic. Yeah, that's made quite a difference for her. So yeah, it's hard because it's like to be able to say, take this or do this or whatever. I mean, we're giving our best guesses here, for people for sure. But again, and I'm sitting on the outside of the expert seat here, but what I say is just, intuitively, if it sounds like something that might be helpful, I don't think it will hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe experimenting with something like adding a good probiotic in like that, or trying zinc and seeing if it might, which is kind of a no-brainer product for a lot of us anyway. It's made a huge difference in my life. I'm now taking your zinc with copper, but back then I was taking the zinc carnosine specifically because I was seeing so many digestive issues post crazy. That was the craziest sickness I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was like massive. It was like actually, I think it was post food poisoning.
Wow.
I think I said flu, but I think it was a food poisoning situation that really took me out. And so, yeah, I used the zinc carnosine product to help me kind of rebuild and repair.
Yeah, it shocks me that it was what it must have been 13, 14 years into my health journey, maybe 14 years that I actually added in zinc, something crazy like that. I don't know how I survived. And I mean, it would have changed my life if I started on it in the beginning. And obviously, like people focus heavily on zinc and forget the copper because there's that ratio. And, while excess of either can cause issues, back to balance in the right ratio, I went to an 8-to-1 ratio with my zinc plus product. So it's 8x the zinc as so 16 milligrams of actual elemental zinc and 2 milligrams of actual elemental copper. And long term, I feel like that's a great ratio. Um, and they're so yeah, it's amazing. Like thinking about all the supplements that the normal people are taking that aren't in this health field, and they might be taking a multi-mineral supplement, and I'm sure it's the wrong ratio, it's the wrong form, the doses are off. So it's
Yeah, the list goes on and on. And I'm glad that you just mentioned copper, and also just like, well, I'm going to ask you this question, but I think I already know what you're going to say, which is there was a question that came in that said, do you believe that we're all low in copper? And do you believe at all about, or do you still believe that iron toxicity exists anymore? And so
yeah. The
I
white
laugh. I
white
laugh.
powder fur off my
Oh,
face.
now it's got cat.
So
We have animals. Both of us have animals at this point in the conversation. We've got animals on both of our laps. So,
yeah. Yes, I've done a few shows on this. That's a good question because a lot of people that are on social media, like on YouTube, they're still, they still think that I subscribe to that philosophy of being anti certain supplements and everybody has iron dysregulation or everybody has iron overload. And I've since adopted a more balanced perspective on this. I think it's individual, but if I had to say at a large scale, iron deficiency, with or without anemia, usually without, is much more common in the population worldwide than iron dysregulation slash iron overload. In my opinion, from all the I spent 2 years roughly deep diving on this topic after I got out of the, I'd say, the cult, or that right,
We.
right. Yeah. And and
It's a tough road.
and it's a very complicated topic. I mean, they make great points, but back to the extremism, it's not all that, only that way. It's not, there's it it's different for everybody, different depending on their exposures, their genetics. What shocked me is when I donated blood twice, um, is the first time I felt great, which I've been public about. I felt like a superhero. Second time I felt very drained, and it took me months to recover, maybe even years. Maybe I'm still recovering. But what I learned is that there's not just iron deficiency anemia, which is what they all say. There's stages to it. And I mentioned this in a recent podcast. I've done several posts on it. Robert Crichton, what some people call the dean of iron biology on planet Earth, he's talked about in his book, like a college textbook on iron, that uh, it's not until basically the fourth stage of iron deficiency, where you're 4 stages deep, where it's classified as anemia. What that means in English is you could still go and donate blood in the first several stages and you'll be accepted, because they do the finger prick when you go and give blood, and make sure your hemoglobin's high enough and all the basic markers. But your hemoglobin could be good, and you could still have deficient bone marrow iron stores. And again, this goes into a whole complex topic of, is serum ferritin an accurate reflection of bone marrow iron stores? Objective answer is yes, it is. Definitively, yes, it is. Um, can it be artificially, or could it be inflated with inflammation? Yes, it can be. Is everybody chronic inflamed? No. So it's very very complicated, and obviously there's all the cofactors that I mentioned. So for someone that's iron deficient, maybe they have single digit ferritin, or below 20, whatever it is, below 30, even below 100 could be low for some people. I tend to hover around the 70, and I feel generally okay. Maybe I'd feel better if I had more. But obviously, L-lysine we mentioned, there's B12, there's B6, there's copper. What else? I mean, uh, there's other things that are related to iron.
The vitamin A.
The vitamin A is huge. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a massive topic. And,
Yeah.
that's why you've done several episodes on it. And that's why it's endless, it's endless. But I think nuance is important. Just to kind of wrap with this one, it's impossible to say like a blanket statement, which, oh, everybody's, iron toxic, or everybody's iron deficient. It's so individual at this point. And to your point earlier, you mentioned something about going off of symptoms. I mean, sometimes you really do have to go off your symptoms, because you could have ferritin of 25 and feel amazing, and you can have a ferritin of 25 and feel ridiculous, and you can't get out of bed. So, it is. And that might be frustrating for people to hear that, because it's like, well, what do we know? How do we believe? Discernment, intuition, dig a little deep within your own, your own self, your own history, look at other things. I think look at other tests that might be able to, point you like in the direction of, oh, maybe this is something to pay attention to, or this is related to iron, right? I mean, I'm sure you probably agree, but it's just so difficult to just give a like one size fits all statement, because there's not one.
Yeah. Yeah. And tune into your body, and like you said, are you fatigued? Are you tired all the time? And it could get complex, because you could be tired all the time because you're in a marriage or a relationship you shouldn't be in, or you're in a house or a place you shouldn't be in. that could be the primary cause, and it often is. And it's not until they get out of that environment or make a tough decision to move, the breakup, even cutting off a friendship, energy vampires, whatever it is, um, then the clarity can come. But I
That's right.
think when somebody's in that cloud, what we say is frustrating because it is going to be more difficult without tests to figure out what's really going on.
That's such a good point. That's a whole other episode. But yeah, it's such a good point because I think when you're in it, and not to stay here for too long, but I think when you're in whatever circumstances you're in and say really there is something else, you could, I think it is easier. And friends, I really want you to hear what Matt just said. And then I'm going to piggyback off of it right now. I think it's easier to point to, well, there must be something diagnostic wise. Like there's got to be something on my blood work that shows why I feel this way. There's got to be, but sometimes it really is something in your life. Sometimes it really is something else, and those things are harder to look at. It's often the place you don't want to look, the corner of the room you don't want to look. That's usually where the answer is. So if there's something that's coming up for you, like that little gnawing, like, you know what, maybe there is something else that's not related, or, maybe my iron is low, or maybe I'm chronically fatigued because of this or that and the other. And it's not to like say that this stuff isn't real, because it is, whatever you're experiencing and the symptoms that you have, or the ways that you're struggling, that is 100% real. Like, this is not about gaslighting anybody. But a lot of times it's really about adjusting your lifestyle, whatever that means for you. And that in itself could correct the imbalance without even adding anything into your life. Sometimes it's about removal and not addition.
True that, and I will add, not to complicate it further, but sometimes adding supplements, like what I've found personally in the past in different situations, is filling these deficiencies or even just increasing your intake of specific things, whether it's magnesium, zinc, even lithium, whatever it is, that can help you look in that corner that you don't want to look at too, for depending on the person.
Yeah. Great point, though. That's a great point. Yeah, because sometimes we really are clouded and we need, there's a deficiency there to some degree. That's where we don't have the vision that we need, or maybe we have the vision, but we don't have the courage.
Yep.
So it's also interconnected. You know what I mean? Like and you and I have had this conversation so much off air, but it's like, what comes first, like the emotional health or the physical health, or what? It's both. It's all of it. It's all of it, but we do need to address the physical, as well. I mean, people who say, well, it's all emotional or it's all mental and, the physical just doesn't matter. That's not true either. Like it's the whole pie. And so it's important to look in all corners, and that's not easy to do, especially when people have been struggling for a long time. They just want to feel better. And I get that. I mean, in a lot of ways I've been that. So I have a lot of empathy for sure.
Yep.
All right, let's land the plane and do just like maybe let's pick two more here. And I'm sorry again, you guys, if we did not get to your questions, it's only because time and without telling you too much detail, we've spent a long time and we spent a long time together today. No, and I've enjoyed every second of it.
It's fun.
It's been super fun. And Lava is, a part of it now. And my dog Tilly's on my lap and everybody's just here. It's like a family affair. How about this? Let's see. How soon after tendon surgery would you suggest to start something like Dissolvedol?
I would say right away. I mean, it's not going to inhibit, to my knowledge, I've never heard any stories from people that it inhibits healing or slows it. Like I said, it's not going to it's not going to start dissolving your healthy tissue or anything like that. It's just working on the excess fibrin. So the fibrin that you don't need. But yeah, if it was me, I would start on it right away. I mean, maybe you could start low dose, like, one every morning, and then, maybe month two every morning, see how you feel, just kind of watch your recovery from there. I always tell people with all the supplements in general, if you're not getting the results that you want, generally increase the dose. I mean, this is particularly true for melatonin. which, if someone's feeling groggy from it, or uh, they don't feel good the next morning after taking it, counterintuitively take more. And maybe if you feel, double it a few times. If you still feel worse the next few times, then yeah, maybe melatonin is not for you, or maybe you need a super microdose and you're in the rare population of people like that. Um, but that's, I mean, it's a lot more affordable than getting a ton of blood work and getting lost in that,
Yeah.
to just experiment with dosing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So back to dissolve it all. Yeah. I mean, just start slow, see how you feel. Can't, yeah. I mean, I know that there are exceptions and there are some things that you need to be mindful of, but it seems like overall, a pretty safe thing to introduce post surgery. Bye,
Yeah.
lava.
Yeah.
Oh
He was biting me.
my goodness. He's like, you've been in this chair for a long
Yeah.
time today. When are we going to leave? Okay. Let's see. Let's do one more. Um, Mega dose what for living in mold? I have stacked Mitolife for 4 years and now I know the cause of my chronic fatigue. I feel like this is it's a good place to land because I feel like this kind of is an all-encompasser type of a question and there might be some repeat, but I thought that was a good one because mold is such a topic and we can also point them into the direction of your recent episodes regarding this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, quick answer,
Yeah.
CLF protocol, but I would say encephalon for sure. That's one of my really unique supplements. It's like a kind of like a nootropic brain booster, because we know that these mycotoxins, um, these compounds that the mold that the fungus creates, are neuroinflammatory. So ginkgo biloba that I have in there, the phosphatidylserine from sunflower, the algae extract that reduces lipid peroxidation, because that's a lot of the neuroinflammation, no matter what it is, causes the oxidation of fats, and we know that fats make up the structure of our cell and mitochondrial membranes. And so obviously vitamin E getting in there, vitamin C as well, vitamin C for the water soluble components of the cell, vitamin E for the fat soluble components of the cell, but then adding in these extra things uh, like encephalon with those three ingredients, anything that pretty much reduces lipid peroxidation. Vitamin E is the most foundational one for brain inflammation. Melatonin, there's just loads and loads and loads of research on how it reduces lipid peroxidation and protects the brain from a variety of salts, even glyphosate. There's been interesting research on melatonin protecting from glyphosate. Um, Magnesium obviously is a super brain protector, but as far as uh, overall, powdered high dose zeolite really helped me. I feel like when I was living in mold for several years without knowing it. So I was doing 30 grams a day. I've been on a break for a little bit, but it's generally something you don't have to take a break from. I mean, you don't have to take 6 scoops or 30 grams a day like I do of the zeolite labs, but even just 5 grams a day, 10 grams a day, whatever it is, whatever is financially sustainable for you. That selective binder that does bind to mycotoxins as well as histamine and heavy metals, all these things, but mycotoxins. Activated charcoal is like the poor man's mycotoxin binder that works. It's just more complicated because you have to take it on an empty stomach. Uh, Boosting NAD with niacinamide, that's called my NAD Power product. That really helps. A lot of people with mold illness or mold exposure deal with fatigue symptoms. So all the stuff I'm talking about with supporting mitochondrial health can help with that. If you want to get into the peptides, the SS31, the MOTS-C combo for the mitochondria, that's very advanced. That could help in combination with the MitoLife supplements. Obviously, Shilajit, I didn't really talk about that much in this in this episode, but that, I mean, if I ever had to pick one, that's always what I say. That is my foundational supplement to take, because it's a combination of all the minerals, macrominerals and trace minerals with fulvic acid. and the fulvic and humic acid basically deliver it into the cell. And that's been shown to have tremendous effects on the brain, protect the brain. In Ayurveda, they called it a panacea. And a lot of the Ayurvedic texts, they actually said it can extend lifespan from 100 to 1,000 years, which is, this sounds like just
Extreme.
fairy tale, right?
Yeah.
Right. Depending on the amount consumed. But I personally take a gram a day. I bathed in it. I actually might even start with that in the bathtub because it goes really well with magnesium. You have to basically get the Shilajit powder. I guess you could dissolve my Shilajit tablets, but generally powder in the bathtub. I don't know anyone else that's done that.
Plus, how many tablets would you need for a bathtub?
That's a good point.
Like
I
that
mean,
might be expensive, right?
well, it's so concentrated that I don't think you need much, but
Like 50.
right. See, like maybe a whole tray. I
Maybe a
don't know.
yeah, yeah. Maybe a sleeve. Maybe a sleeve or a don't just, be cautious. Be cautious, friends. We're just playing around.
One
But
interesting thing though, I did realize with baths is uh if you have the water too hot, you essentially sweat and you'll be releasing stuff like a detox. But if you keep it warm and not hot, like I know a lot of women like super hot baths. If you keep it warm, then you could actually absorb things through the skin. Um, that's just something that I've been kind of contemplating in my bathtub recently. I never did scalding hot bathtubs, bath sessions, but it's something to consider. So,
no, it is. And it honestly, like I love hot showers. Like I'm somebody who's I really it even in the summer, like I'm the one who's taken the hot shower, but hot baths, they can be helpful, but also it really depends on the person because I noticed that when I've taken hot baths before, I actually feel worse after. And you have to be careful with hydration and your mineral status, kind of like going into a sauna when you're not equipped from a mineral standpoint. You can kind of like get that quote unquote reaction where your body's just like, no, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I'm a little dehydrated here, and it can raise your heart rate and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like like a medium temperature works well, I think.
yeah. Little side note too. I have a local friend, Benny. They've raised several children on the MitoLife supplements, which is cool to see. And I recently got him into sauna because he was unable to sweat. Like he never sweat. So just a little side note for this whole show that there are like almost free diagnostics that you can use to tell like where to start with your health. One of them, if you cannot sweat or you sweat very rarely or never at all, that is a really, really bad thing. And that was him. So when I got him on the Therasage sauna, which is to me like the most affordable, effective tent sauna, that's what I started with in 2010 off Craigslist used. If you don't have the money or space to do like a wooden box style carbon, emitter sauna, then just the tent style works. And I would sit completely in it with my head in it and everything on a towel. But he started to sweat finally. And he said he doesn't enjoy it, but he feels so much better being consistent with it. So that could be like a super low hanging fruit if someone, light bulb goes off. Oh, yeah, he's right. I never sweat. That is like, to me, one of the top places to start. And I notice too, when I'm fighting an infection or just not feeling well, and I go in my wood burning barrel sauna outside, if it takes me longer to sweat, that is telling me information that I'm not where I usually am with my health.
I've had that experience a lot. I've actually had that experience more often than I would like to say. And I've taken a long break from sauna just just because that's what I'm currently doing. Again, we're not here to talk about me. But in the past, and a lot of times when I've started the protocol again, like the sauna protocol, I would not sweat at first. Like it would take me several sessions, which would be such an indicator for me as to like what was going on in my body, which is helpful because again, it's not about fear. It's about information, like you said. And that can be a helpful piece. So yeah, that's awesome that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And we sweat out more than just sodium and potassium too. People don't know magnesium, zinc.
Oh, magnesium's a big
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that can make
Absolutely.
people worse, right? To your point of,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my friend, I feel like and again, I apologize to those of you who sent in questions and we didn't get to it, which means we're just gonna have to do this
I'll have
again.
to do another one. Yeah. I'll block out another half day.
Oh my goodness. We don't have the time to share with our friends how our day has gone today, but you know what? That's life and reality. And I laugh as I sit here with, one dog in my hand and you've got lava and we've had tech issues and we've had lighting issues and we've had so many things go down. As I was saying, I promise this is not my first day. And thank God that I know you for real, like in real life, quote unquote, because we've just laughed halfway through it. But I think that sometimes those are the best conversations because, this has been in so many ways very organic and I knew it would be. And I just, as we close, I just want to say that, your dedication to health and research, it's really made such an impact in my life. And I probably said that in the past episode that we did, but that still stands and even more so. And as I've gotten to know you through the years, I have even more respect for how passionate you are, but how true you stay to yourself through this process, despite feedback or pushback or hate. And I've watched you walk through that for years, and it's not easy. And it doesn't matter how much like thick skin we have. I mean, that stuff is not easy to deal with. And so, just from me to you, this has been so fun, trouble and all, and laughter and all, which is great, just the fact that we've laughed halfway through this. But I just appreciate everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and that you will continue to do. And I have just so much respect for, just your time when it comes to how much you've put into this and really just trying to make people's lives better, and you've obviously been called to this. And so, I just thank you, from one friend to another. Like, thank you for doing what you're doing and for continuing to do it, even with all the roadblocks that have, kind of appeared in front of you. So, really, thank you. And thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's been so fun.
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate your dedication to it as well. And I think people in our shoes, the challenge is not overstretching and giving too much, because we tend to that tends to be our type. So we're more prone to burnout. But I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, it's been an up and down with, I'd say I lost the spark to research anything new for a couple of years there. And I recently gained it back, not just with looking into things like peptides and mold illness, but just overall being interested in researching human health again, which to me is a sign that I'm getting healthier and I'm kind of coming out of a slump and chronic stress or burnout or whatever you want to call it. So we're all, whether your favorite influencer online is pretending like everything's perfect, everybody is going through something different types of stress, and we could all use support. And grateful that we found each other and grateful that the listeners found this show, and hopefully this helps many people.
Yeah, no, it absolutely will. There's just no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
I usually ask where people can find you, but I actually can probably provide the answer for people. And if you have anything to add, you guys, I'm going to list all the ways that you can find Matt and MitoLife in the show notes. Things are always there for you. I try to be as extensive as possible. But you're going to be able to find the MitoLife website. You're going to be able to find his social media links in the website. Obviously, YouTube, MitoLife Radio, the podcast, that will all be in there for you. And I have personally been an affiliate for MitoLife. Again, I use the brand. I talk about the brand. I believe in the brand. So I've been an affiliate for years now. And so there will be a listener discount code for you in the show notes as well. I believe it's Vanessa 15. But that will all be there as well. If there's anything else that you want to add, feel free. But I feel like I covered it. Did I cover it?
You covered it. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. And I'm working on the shower filter coming back too for the people that follow me closely.
Yeah. People are hounding you.
Yeah.
They're hounding you. That and the magnesium. The magnesium was out for a while.
Yeah. I think that'll be in a week or two. Yeah. But the chill pill, I'm really excited about. That's going to be four, 4 or 5, I think a 5 ingredient blend. I think it's going to be the most complex. I'll just drop it now. It's going to be called Tranquil Mind.
Ooh.
And I'm super excited for that one because that is, I could just see everybody needs a chill pill. So my life will provide it.
Well, you heard it here first, my friends. Looks like I'm going to be adding another supplement to my regimen. That's for sure. That's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, you guys. Well, again, all of this information will be in the podcast. Both Matt and I appreciate you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to either one of us. We will be happy to point you in the right direction, and anything you need, just let us know. We're both active on social media, and then also just in the, all the ways that you can get in touch, even email. My friend, I appreciate you. I give you the biggest hug from across the screen. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will have to do it again soon.
Let's definitely do it again soon. Thanks, Vanessa. I had a blast.
I had a blast too. All right, you guys, until the next episode, I hope you have a really blessed day, and I will see you next time. All right, my friends, that is a wrap on today's episode. What a ride. I know it was a longer one, but that is expected. And it's also so welcomed when Matt comes to join me here on the show because there's always so much to discuss. So I hope you're walking away with a little bit of clarity or more insight, and you even enjoy laughing with us a little bit. If you would like to explore more of Matt's work, check out mitalife.co. And you can also find the links to his podcast and, of course, all of his social media links and resources that we talked about in the show notes. If you are curious about trying any of his supplements or stocking up, I have also included my affiliate link there as well for you, which gives 15% off anything. So again, thank you so much for being here, for listening, and just for supporting the show. It would not be a show without you. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode. And of course, remember, we are beautifully designed to live not by chance or coincidence, but with purpose and intention. See you soon.